IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown podcast. Ryan Roberts here, Director of Recruiting here at irishbreakdown.com, bringing you some latest Notre Dame conversation. Going to start with a little combine talk for people that don't know. 8 former Notre Dame football players, standouts, will be in Indianapolis the end of this month to test their skills in front of some of the NFL scouts, GMs, decision makers that will be on tap in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm also going to hit on some latest recruiting news during this. There's a, a couple key prospects in the 2025 class that Notre Dame is trending in a very good direction with most recently. And we really want to hit on a couple of those key nuggets. And then, of course, we'll hit a mailbag at the end. I am solo for now, possibly having someone join me at some point. We'll see what happens, towards the probably a couple minutes into the show. But regardless, folks, let's talk some combine because it's one of my favorite weeks of the year. And for people that don't follow the combine too closely, this year's on field activities, because it's a very long week for 2024 NFL draft prospects, but for the on field activity, which is what most people care about, right? They want to see players run their 40, do the L, broad jump, vertical. You get some access to bench press occasionally, depending on usually just the best numbers of the day. But regardless, that will be from February 29th on the field to March 3rd is when you will see the on-field activities, which is when, as Notre Dame fans, you get to see your former Notre Dame stars compete in front of all the scouts in Indianapolis. So those 8 players are Sam Hartman, quarterback, running back Audric Estime, offensive lineman Joe Alt, and Blake Fisher. Defensive side of the football, you're going to have Javontae Jean-Baptiste, defensive end. You're going to have linebackers Maris Lloyd-Fowl and J.D. Bertrand, as well as cornerback Cam Hart. So 8 total players from off of Notre Dame's 2023 squad will be in Indianapolis. And for varying degrees, this week is going to be huge for each one of these players. I'm going to break it down a little bit, just kind of briefly for you all, give you some of the key points and things to watch for. When we get closer to the combine, we'll do a much more in-depth conversation as far as what do we want to see? What do they need to accomplish? What are the numbers they need to hit? All those miscellaneous things will be in a little bit of a deeper breakdown, but this is going to be more of a early information. What are you going to be watching for each one of these football players? Because these weeks mean so much different things to depending what position you play, your status overall. There's going to be some players that opt to not work out at all, and because of their status high in the draft, there's going to be injury updates, the medical side of the thing, which would be huge for one Notre Dame player in particular. You are also going to have, obviously, the one-on-one opportunities between these players and the teams. Now, these things are timed, so it's a little bit of a limited opportunity to get to know a player, but it is an opportunity at the end of the day. So I want to get into each one of these players, a couple key things to note, and then we'll move on to a little bit of recruiting talk. So let's start with Sam Hartman, quarterback, Notre Dame, spent 1 year with the Fighting Irish after a very good stretch, to say the least, with the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, where he was a record-setting quarterback at Wake. Spent 1 year at Notre Dame, had ups and downs, some good, some middling, some average. And we obviously know that it didn't live up to our expectations as Notre Dame fans. I don't have to tell you all that. That's not breaking news here on this podcast. But Sam Hartman did get invited to the Reese's Senior Bowl 2024 edition a couple weeks ago, where he competed down in Mobile, Alabama. And I thought Sam, because I know people hyper focus on the game was terrible. But for the most part, Sam had a pretty good week, in my opinion, in Mobile, Alabama. And this event, more than anything in Indianapolis for a quarterback, because I don't think anybody expects Sam Hartman to go to Indianapolis in his shorts and run 4.6 and dazzle everyone with his great physique and all those weird things that we talk about during Combine Week, obviously. But what are the key parts of playing the quarterback position? Communicator, leader, those elements to this conversation, Sean, is what, and Sean Davis is joining us, by the way, because he loves the combine time of the year. And I've talked to Sean. He might stop by in Indianapolis for a little bit, depending on what the schedule is like. So, Sean, kind of hitting on players. Sam Hartman, obviously, we're getting the conversation here. I don't think the actual workout is that important for Sam. It's gonna be important for him to look at throwing the football during that section of practice. But overall, this one for quarterback Sean is much more built upon those meetings, the one-on-ones, the whiteboard action. Can you impress us with your intellect and your leadership ability? That's what Sam Hartman has to prove this upcoming week in Indy at the end of the month.
And then what I love about the combine is he's going to get attention from teams that actually have a vision for him, right? And don't expect him to come in. Look, everybody's going to look at Brock Purdy and say, dude, can we get the next Brock Purdy in round 5, 6, 7? Because Sam Hartman is not the athlete Brock Purdy is. You know, he's not going to make the off. I don't even think, just from what we saw on film, I don't think he has the anticipatory skills of a Brock Purdy, right? Even though he's played and started similar amount of games in college. So now it's about teams that can look at him and be honest about who he is and can make an evaluation of where he possibly fits in their systems. Could Sam Hartman be a 10-year vet as a backup? You're darn right he can. You're darn right he can if he goes to the right situation. He can end up being that dude. Is he going to have to? Tyson Bagent here in Chicago. Like,
it's your boy, man.
I remember watching him at the combine last year. Like, oh, okay, this kid has played a lot of football. Not the competition isn't great, but he beat out a vet, longtime vet in the NFL to be the backup here in Chicago, and I think he's going to hold on to that spot. So it really is about finding someone that believes in you in the combine, which goes to what you said, the meetings, right? Because people are not going to just waste their time bringing you in if they don't think there's something there. There might be some teams that just through due diligence, like, all right, add him to the list. But hopefully the teams that bring him in will have interest, have a vision that he can possibly be who he is, which is not a guy that's going to start and lead you to the Super Bowl. But he could add something to the roster.
The combine week is so interesting because I think Antoine Johnson had said like he has kind of mixed feelings about it. And Antoine, as a person that is literally his roots are in the NFL draft sphere, I have mixed feelings with the combine as well, man. I really do, because I think that some people at times negate 3 to 4 years of film for one day of a workout, and you try to convince yourself of things. The combine always structures as this for me, Sean, the athleticism side of things. I see a wide receiver on tape, and I'm like, wow, that kid is incredible vertical elements. Looks like a 4.3 athlete to me. He goes to the combine, and he runs a 4.3. You know what that does, Sean? Just verifies it, man. I don't need to watch any more film. I don't need to bump his grade. He's exactly what I thought he was. But if Will Fuller, who is that person I was just talking about, if he goes to the combine and Will Fuller runs a 4.5, that's a situation where you might have to say, I might need to go back and watch the tape a little bit more, because there's something maybe that I missed there, right? So it's usually when the athletic testing is out of realm of expectation that makes you go back to the film. It doesn't change your grade. I want you all to understand, it does not change my grade. If a player I thought was fast and they just run slower than anticipated, I'm not initially knocking their grade. Like, that's not how that works. What these tests do is it either verifies things or it makes you go back and watch the film again. And then sometimes your opinion might change from there. So I just want people to understand that process. But then we're talking about the full week. We're talking about the team interviews. There's also media availability, which is always my favorite part because you get to talk to some of the prospects. But Sean, for people that don't know, the people that are the guys that are going through this draft process and getting ready for these events, they're not just running 40 times and doing L drill and doing bench press in these workouts. They also are getting interview prep of how to answer specific questions. So you have to be a really good interviewer as a media member to get anything out of it, right? Because you know what, the conversation is going to be very easy. Sean, it's going to be very easy. You're a Chicago Bears fan. Hey, Sam, what could you potentially bring to the Chicago Bears? Oh man, I'm a leader. I'm a competitor. I'll do whatever it takes to win. Just the standard cliche stuff. But then you need to ask a different follow-up to try to really get it out of them, right? Like, give me your real personality. I don't want to hear the cliches, but that's what they're trained to do, obviously, because they are trying to just kind of check boxes throughout the draft process. Sam does need to check boxes here, though. He does, because I think that how Sam is going to make a living, and you hit on it a little bit, is as a guy that you can depend on from a day-to-day perspective. Not a day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
perspective as in, I need him to go out and start for me and throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. No, I need him to be able to be a part of a quarterback room and know that if his number is called at any point, he can do a serviceable, fine job. I know that there is a big back and forth between the what's the term? It is a game manager, right? A game manager versus a game changer. We've heard that conversation a ton. There's nothing wrong. Listen to me, folks. There is nothing wrong with being a game manager in the NFL as a quarterback, because you know what that does, Sean? Gives you a job, man. It gives you a job. You want to make a
And
roster first and foremost.
it's a lot less pressure. You can lose your starting job before you lose your backup job. A backup stick around for years. Man, Chad Henne. Dude, I can give you a list of backups. It's just Nick Foles.
Chase Daniel.
They're healthy. Chase Daniel, healthy. Super Bowl rings. Big time money. Heck, the backup makes what, 5-6 million right now?
Oh, yeah.
More than that?
Yes, some more than that. Yep.
You stack
Crazy,
that for
man.
10 years, stack that for 10 years and keep your health. It's a pretty good job.
It is. It is.
If you
But all
ask
that
me,
to say,
would you rather be Justin Fields or would you rather be a backup that's going to be in the league for 10 years? See, you really have to think about that, don't you, Ryan?
Well, depends who the backup is, right? So, like, if you ask me, would I rather be Justin Fields or rather be Chase Daniel? I'd rather be Chase Daniel because he made a mess of money and didn't hurt his body at all, right? Like, he's just chilling, man. He's got a lot of money in the bank.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Rather than to question whether or not you could be a guy and go from team to team, right.
And honestly,
take the hits.
And honestly, not every starter is going to be suited to be a backup in the NFL, because there's some guys. I mean, we saw this with Cam Newton, even Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Cam Newton could have prolonged his career a little bit if he would have been like, you know what, I'm just gonna be a backup. I'm gonna be okay with that. Colin Kaepernick, another one where he's just like, if at some point he was just like, you know what, I'm done fighting the fight. I'm not gonna get a starting job in this league. I could just be a backup here and then get some money each and every year. You could have prolonged the career a little bit. You could have, but there's some quarterbacks that just don't want to do that, which that's their prerogative. But I mean, it's just, all that to say is nothing wrong with being a backup quarterback in the NFL, man. There is zero wrong with it. But ultimately, this week, Sean, coming up at the end of the month, again, on field is from February 29th to March 3rd is when you'll be able to tune into NFL Network and watch all the workouts and everything if you're an avid watcher of the NFL Scouting Combine. That week is not anything you see on TV is not going to improve Sam Hartman's stock. None of it. What happens behind the scenes when he talks to the teams, medical checks, all that miscellaneous stuff, that's going to not make or break, because I don't think it's going to break necessarily, but it's going to verify a lot of things about Sam Hartman, hopefully, in that week in Indianapolis. Can we go to Audric Estime next? Because he's an interesting one, Sean, because it does matter more what he does in the shorts during the Indianapolis. I think that anybody can really watch Audric and come away with these couple of assumptions, okay? One, very powerful, and he's pretty dang explosive once he gets going in a straight line. You can look at those things and be like, yep, he's got that. And he was productive. Like, all three of those things, that's cool. This week, Sean, coming up for Audric, for me, is about, can you make someone go back to the tape that had just that assumption of you, that you're just as power back, that doesn't do much out of structure, that can't affect the passing game. If there's anybody that watched the film and thought that, you have a chance to make them go back and rethink a little bit. Because I do think there's some things on film Audric brings to the table that not enough people give him credit for. The quick feet, the ability that he does have as a pass catcher. There's nuance to his game, but I think that we'll talk about 40 times a lot, and people are going to hyper-focus on that. I do think the 40 is important for Audric, but I think more than anything, what's more important, in my opinion, that change of direction stuff. You're going to see the short shuttle. You're going to see the 3-cone. And when he gets into the section of the practice where it's about the pass routes and pass catching stuff, I think that that's really going to make or break whether Audric is a mid day 2 draft pick or maybe a guy that's hovering around late day 2, early day 3 conversation.
I think, just to use him for example, I think you have the combination of Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery. and you really had your big play guy and your pound and ground guy. And you saw with David Montgomery going to Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs, you saw what it did for their run game. It gave them versatility in the run game. No, the Bears missed that. So the Bears going to get a kid like Audric Estime. They thought Roschon Johnson could be that kid. Couldn't stay healthy. He just couldn't stay healthy, and he just doesn't have the girth to do that in the NFL. Right? I'm just telling you what they thought, bro.
Well, and I'm just gonna say is that usually, guys, the college career does give you some hints as far as what's going to happen. Roschon Johnson was never able to stay healthy for Texas. Am I shocked that he was able to stay healthy year one? I mean, I'm not. So just to kind of make a point on top of your point there, the main point.
So, Audric Estime, and just using this as an example, would be a perfect fit for the Bears, regardless of what they do at quarterback, right? Because you want that versatility in the run game. He would be a perfect fit. And I think for me, Audric is underrated in his ability. That was the first time I saw him on the practice field. I remember texting Brian saying, this dude has incredible feet for his size.
He does.
Like, dude, his feet for his size are incredible. And that's going to bode well for him in the NFL. But it's going to be very important, the system he goes to and the team that he goes to. And I think a team like the Bears would really need him, which might push him up the board a little bit further for them than maybe on some other boards. But you're absolutely right. The on-field agility drills, what he runs in the 40, I don't think people would expect him to, because we've seen Audric pull away from guys. I mean, the North Carolina State run, we've seen him pull away from guys once he gets to the next level. So he has a level of explosiveness for his size that's not like Bijan Robinson or something like that. But for his size, if you let him get a step, first of all, catching up to him is one thing. And then having to pull him down as a defensive back is a different thing. I think I wouldn't put him in a system with, I don't know, how would you feel? Because I was thinking like, okay, you see Pacheco and how hard he runs, but Pacheco is not really, that's his style of running. He's not really a big guy.
No, he's like 202 pounds or 204 pounds or something like that.
Right.
Pacheco's not a big guy at all. Yeah.
I'm thinking like, if Kansas City can get him, to pair, it's all about how teams, this is really about the beauty contest, right? It's left up to the judges, and it's subjective. And like Miss Oregon and Miss California could look like twins, but you think one is better and the other one is okay. It is. That's what the NFL draft is. It's a bunch of guys coming to a beauty pageant, and we'll get to see like on draft day what the results are, because it's all subjective. It really is.
Yes, it is. No, it is subjective. That's why you hear every year that this guy had 3rd round grades on some boards and then 6th or 7th round grades on others. There's diversity of opinions on players a lot, because ultimately, and this is a key point here, is that when we're navigating how a player is as a prospect, we also need to understand and remember that each team runs a different system. Each team has different core values and beliefs that they bring to the table. So there are going to be some teams that might even be running back needy that are going to look at Audric and be like, that guy doesn't fit our system. I think of like the Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan outside zone system, right? That everyone's trying to run for the most part. The San Francisco 49ers and every Kyle Shanahan disciple out there for the outside zone system. And Sean, like, Audric doesn't really fit outside zone much. Like, I wouldn't want him in that system. Like, I want him inside zone gap power system. Like, I want that little combination there, because he's just not an outside zone runner necessarily. But Audric has a chance, just early conversation, to showcase that he's maybe a more dynamic athlete. Now, I'm not going to say better athlete, because I don't think people watch Audric in film and be like, that guy's not a good athlete. I think it's trying to show that there's nuances and subtleties to his game that maybe you did not give him enough credit for. Because there have been plenty of plays where I watch him and I'm like, that guy's front side, the Duke run, Sean, to win the game. He was front side, and then he cut it all the way backside on inside zone. Like, that's not a stiff runner, man. Like, you don't tell me that has no foot quickness, or that doesn't have any type of short area burst if you're able to kind of hit zone backside a ton. I mean, so yeah, Audric has a lot to gain. he has a lot of, and the big thing about Audric, and they'll move on to the offensive lineman, but Audric, Sean, is also in a running back class in 2024. That's not a great class. It's
That's a
not.
good
I mean,
point.
right now at the top, you're like Trey Benson from Florida State,
Florida State.
Jonathan Brooks from Texas, who's good, but he's coming off an injury. Blake Corum, who's going to be sub 5'7", like he's going to be 5'6" and some change. And he's just a smaller body type who's had a little bit of durability concerns throughout his Michigan career at times. I mean, there's a lot more question marks in the running back position than answers. And I think Audric wants to be an answer after the week in Indianapolis. And I think he has a chance to. Now, probably the biggest one from we're talking about just cementing who you are, just make sure that you put a stamp on everything, is Joe Alt. He has a chance, Sean. Right now, today, I would say majority of teams, and especially the ones high in the draft that will be selecting an offensive tackle, I'm confident in saying, based upon conversations, just general flow of everything that's happening, that Joe Alt is probably OT1 for a majority of teams right now. First offensive tackle off the board. He's competing with Olufashanu from Penn State. He's going to be competing with Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. He's going to be fighting with J.C. Latham from Alabama. Like, it's a really good offensive tackle list. It is. Despite that, I think Joe has separated himself a little bit, Sean, because he had a great year, man. He had a great year for Notre Dame. But there is an assumption out there, which I think is kind of dumb and kind of insane, that Joe Alt is technically savvy and proficient and checks a lot of boxes, right? But that he's not a great athlete. And I don't know where that comes from. I was talking with Brian about this on the phone one day, Sean. I want to hear your thought on this because I think that Joe Alt gets underrated athletically because he's a former high school tight end, man. Like, he's got to be a really good athlete. Like, he is a really good athlete. Yeah. But I think he gets underrated as an athlete because he makes everything look so easy. Does it ever look like Joe Alt's trying incredibly hard on the football field, man? Like, he just makes everything look so natural and so easy that I think some people underrate his athleticism. I don't know if you see similar or not, but that's just kind of my thought process to why people underrate the athleticism there.
I think it goes back to subjectivity, like we talked about, bro. Like, look, people just don't want to believe that things are what they are. They just have to find something. And sometimes you can fall into that trap as an evaluator. Sometimes the picture is what it is. Like, you know, sometimes you feel as an evaluator, like, man, maybe this is too good to be true. It's like, no, man, he is that good. It does come that easy for him. It is like, yo, and everybody's going to raise their level and get better going to the next level. But what he has is so easily transferable. Like, what's the issue? And like you said, right, if he in this class, I think Phil Yates put out his, I think he has him going 5th to the Chargers, I think.
Chargers are 5. Yep.
Chargers are 5. He has him going 5th to the Chargers. So that's the impact of Jim Harbaugh. That's what that is. That's like, okay, sure, Jim Harbaugh's coming in. And he's probably going to take the best dude on that offensive line to set the culture. And that's Joe Alt, you know. So yep, he's not just the best in a weak class, like you said. He's the best in a very impressive class of offensive tackles. You know, yep, in comparison to last year when you got a kid like Darnell Wright jumping up, where there's no way he should be taken that high as a right tackle.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me ask you a question. Since this class is really good at tackles, are we watching a trend, maybe not so much in college, that you trust your quarterback so much that you don't have to have a top-notch tackle group? And this goes back to what we did this Monday. Would you prefer elite interior guys versus elite tackles, or elite tackles versus, you know, okay interior guys? Because I think the Chiefs, you see the Chiefs they have really good interior guys. Like, their interior guys,
they do
elite. And then they can switch out the tackles because they trust Patrick and his ability to be mobile, move up in the pocket. They're like, yo, if we can just get these guys to do this, we'll be fine at the tackle position. So I'm wondering from an NFL standpoint if that's a trend that other teams might be following to trust their quarterbacks if they have a top quarterback when they look at the draft.
I think the margin between in stopping interior pressure and edge pressure has definitely come closer together because we're now seeing
Mhm.
an age, Sean, where I mean, you got Aaron Donalds and Chris
Mm.
Jones and some of these freak shows inside. It used to be this generally because there's obviously exceptions, right? Like we've seen Warren Sapp and some other great sack artists playing inside. Bryant Young that literally played at Notre Dame. Like we've seen some defensive
Mhm.
tackles that can penetrate and create a lot of pressure. But typically, what has been historically is usually your edge players are your better pass rushers. Typically, right? Typically,
Mhm.
and a left tackle is playing. I would still argue this against probably pound for pound the best athlete on the field in most areas, and that is the weak side defensive end in most cases. The Myles Garrett and
Mhm.
TJ Watt and those dudes that were. I mean, when you look at Myles Garrett, Sean, that dude was not made on the planet Earth. I need to see a birth certificate before I actually I don't even need a birth certificate. I need video footage of him being born on this earth before I
Yeah.
believe that he was born on this earth. These defensive ends nowadays, man,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. Like it literally does not make any sense. Some of these athletic freaks. How about Trayvon Walker had a good second year out of Georgia for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had like 10 sacks this year, Sean. That guy was
Mhm.
6'5, 275 and ran a 4.51. What? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Some of these guys are just some of the absolute freakiest athletes that we will ever see. I mean, they are crazy. So I still maintain left tackle is the most important position on the fields from a secondary to a quarterback. I still believe that that position is paramount. Now, I will say is that it's become a little bit of a trend, and you're absolutely correct with the Kansas City Chiefs of I want to make sure my quarterback can step up in the pocket. And he's a little bit, Patrick Mahomes is a little bit of a, he can get the ball out quick when he wants to, but then we know that there are some times where he's going to hold the ball. You know why? Because he can do things that other people just can't do, right? Like he just can't
Mhm.
do it. So for the most part, though, I do think you want to have really good offensive tackles and a solid to good interior for the most part, because for every Patrick Mahomes, there just aren't many guys like him. I mean, we can count those guys on like 2 or 3 fingers, like the Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes, Josh Allen's. Those guys can do that, or they can hold the ball forever at times because they can make a just magnificent play. But then there are Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert's, guys that
Yeah.
need to get the ball out a little bit faster, a little bit quicker to be as successful as they possibly can. Jared Goff, we just saw playing an NFC Championship game, right? Like for him, making sure that you can get the ball out quick is more essential than being able to extend the inside of the pocket, if that makes sense. So it's a great question though, man. A lot of nuance
Yeah.
to that
I,
question
I
as
I was
well.
just wondering because I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
it's a copycat league in certain ways. And like, dude, you see this
Yep.
success where they're just swapping out tackles for Patrick Mahomes like every other year. You know, I think their left tackle this year is a free agent. They might just let him walk and just because Orlando Brown went to Cincinnati. For
Yes.
the previous tackle from last year's Super Bowl. And now this tackle is on a free agent. So they might just be like, okay, we'll swap him out as well. It's
Yeah.
yo, it's if you believe you have a guy
Yep.
like a Joe Burrow or like a Patrick Mahomes or Josh
Mm-hmm.
Allen or of that ilk, Dak Prescott has
Yes.
had pretty impressive tackles or
Yep.
offensive linemen down in Dallas. So it might be
Yes.
different for him. It might be different for a Jalen Hurts. But if you have a dude, you might not feel like you have to protect his backside because you trust
True.
that he can work around that, right?
Make some
What
magic
you
happen.
said,
Yep.
heck yeah, like you said, Chris Jones literally saved 3 touchdowns Sunday, literally on 3
Yeah.
plays,
Yeah.
and that's the impact.
Literally, the game's probably over if he doesn't have that quick pressure in that
Yes,
game as well, where
in
they
that
could have
game.
hit. Who was it? Was it who was the wide receiver that was open on that
Ayuk
play?
was
I
open
can't.
backside, and
Ayuk.
and
It was
and
Ayuk.
and
Yep.
15, I forget his name, was open to the
Oh,
front
Juwan
side.
Jennings.
Juwan
Juwan
Jennings was
Jennings. Yeah.
open on a little swirl route. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So that just goes to show you, man. Like,
Well, Sean, I think we're going to have a crazy study in a couple years, man, because you know what positions get paid on the offensive side of the football aside from a quarterback? It's offensive tackles. They get paid.
mhm.
So maybe Patrick Mahomes is going to save the Chiefs a little bit of money because he doesn't need great offensive tackles. He can make that. I mean, honestly, like it's kind of a joke, but like honestly, it's kind of true-ish that maybe he can get away with some average guys that aren't going to be at market value, and he makes it
Yeah.
work because you had to save money somewhere, man. When you're paying a quarterback $40+ million a year, you got to save it somewhere. Can't allocate it
And
everywhere.
they don't seem to value. So this goes to, man, this is dope because we're talking combine. So like the Chiefs don't really, they probably go to the combine and never really look at offensive tackles. Like I can't even think of the last offensive tackle they drafted. Like, but they draft
early.
What was your grade on Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith? Do you remember? Did you think like, yo,
dude, I had a high grade on so a little bit of my process, just so that everybody knows, and it's a great question, Sean. I don't insert injury concerns into my on-field evaluation. So I had a late first round grade on Trey Smith, but I had a medical red flag next to his name. Like you knew that the issues with the blood clots was going to be a thing for teams. You knew it, right? But I thought at the time, and I have maintained this, obviously, and I look pretty good for this take, that they got a late first round level player in the 6th round because of the blood clot issue. Creed Humphrey, I was a little bit higher than what the NFL. I mean, Creed ended up being a 3rd round pick, I believe, or very late second. He went after Josh Myers, though, from Ohio State, who actually I kind of liked a little bit coming out of Ohio State, but I had an early 2nd round grade on Creed Humphrey. So they got value in both spots. They got tremendous value with Trey Smith, though.
So now that's what I'm saying. They are great evaluators, and they go get dudes, right? That everybody else might say, okay, well, because Creed Humphrey was pretty good at Oklahoma, man. And then Joe Tooney. Trivia question:
great,
who was Joe Tooney's high school quarterback?
Wait, so that's a good question. Wait, so Joe Tooney went to NC State. Who was his high school quarterback? Everett Golson? That's my guess. Maybe he's North Carolina guy.
Zaire.
No way, really?
Yes, way. Yes.
Wow.
So that dude, they evaluate.
Also, Everett Golson's from South Carolina. I just said North Carolina. I was completely off there, but yeah. Okay. Yep.
They evaluate the interior guard, the guard, totally different than they evaluate young college tackles. You can just tell, like, look, we can figure the tackle situation out. Like, go get me some studs inside from rounds 3 back, right? And that's where your scouts come in, guys like you that'll say, yo, he might fall, but he's a 1st round talent, right? So if we can get him late, he fits perfectly. Like, dude, the Tyreek Hill trade. Go look at this. The 8 draft picks. 7 of that 8 draft picks started on a Super Bowl winning team. Like, dude, that's an organization that's like they get it, right? Because it's not for us. And like this will go to high school recruiting. For us, the easy thing for us to do, the easy fruit to grab, are the platforms, platforms and the stars and the rankings. That's the easy stuff. Unfortunately, that's not how you build a team based upon those platforms. You actually have to evaluate and do the work and develop, right?
Yep.
And that is something that will Audric estimate. What type of offensive line does he operate best behind? What type of running system does he operate best behind? Like, does he work better in an offense that's going to be under center a little bit more? Or all of these things, and teams and organizations like the Chiefs that know who they are, Ryan. They know who they are. And they're not about to go waste their time at a combine looking at the top tackles when they're like, dude, we're wasting our time doing that. We're wasting our time. We're not taking the top tackle at 31 because we expect to be either 31 or 32 every year. Either we win the Super Bowl or we lose the Super Bowl. That's what we expect to be every year and in every round. So in that case, this is the way we're going to go about doing it, right? And it's the same thing with everybody that I think would know. I think this pro day at Notre Dame is going to be one of the most intriguing, me personally. Even though Joe Alt might be the only guy that's like, we might have years down the line, like next year, dude, you're going to have 2 defensive backs in Notre Dame to have a chance to get called the first day. Flat out. They have a chance based upon what they do during the season and then after the season. Testing.
Yep.
So the excitement and the buzz might be a little bit more, right?
Sure.
Heck, if Riley Leonard has a good year, there's going to be buzz about him.
Could be.
Right?
And next year's quarterback class does not look good early on. Early on. So he's got a chance. It's going to be interesting. Sean, we'll move on to Blake Fisher here in a second, but the Kansas City Chiefs have always have a soft spot for me. Not because I'm not a Chiefs fan by any means, but that defense is basically all Ryan Roberts draft crush team, man. It's crazy. I was talking about it with someone someone said this to me like a couple weeks ago, and I didn't even realize it. But I was higher than the markets comparative to where they went and compared to what a lot of people thought on George Karlaftis, on Nick Bolton, on Willie Gay Jr., on Leo Chenal out of Wisconsin, out of Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State, and then Trent McDuffie out of Washington. I was higher probably on just about anybody in draft media on those guys, man. I really like that defense. They add in that they have Drew Tranquil and Chris Jones and all these dudes, right? You're like, that defense is fun, man. That's a fun defense. I really
intelligent defense.
Yes.
A very intelligent defense.
Yes. Sean, let's talk about Blake Fisher now, because we spent a lot of time on Joe Alton for good reason. I mean, he's going to be the first player drafted for Notre Dame in the 2024 NFL draft. You mentioned number 5 to the Chargers. I think at worst, barring some injury that we don't know about or some medical red flag, whatever it might be, Joe Alt, pick number 7, Tennessee Titans, is probably the floor for Joe Alt. Like, I would be surprised if he gets past number 7 overall in the 2024 NFL draft. A guy that I think there's a lot of variance on, though.
Don't say that, Ryan. You know my squad is sitting at 9. Don't say that.
Well, I'm sorry, man. I don't think you're gonna have it. You might be able to get Fashanu or Fawaga or somebody else like that.
No. Right, I want Joe. All
right. Well, you might have to trade up for Joe with that. You might have to jump up to 6 to get in front of Tennessee. That might have to be something you have to do. But a guy that is has high variance in this class, Sean. I've heard 3rd to 4th round grades. I've heard some people a little bit lower. That's Blake Fisher, former starting right tackle for Notre Dame, who is a very interesting one, Sean, because there was a reason that he was a 5-star by one recruiting platform coming out and a high 4-star by a couple others. There was a reason for that. The kid's obviously talented, right? Yeah. Obviously. But there is a multi-layer conversation here. One, I want to see what the arm length is for Blake Fisher to see if he's a true offensive tackle at the next level. 2, I want to see how he tests overall. I expect him to test pretty well, personally. I expect him to test pretty well. The third one, though, is that I would love to sit down with him and talk whiteboard, talk ball a little bit, see what his passion is for the game, see how he understands the game at a higher level. Because the one thing that we need to cut Blake some slack with a little bit, and myself included, for some of the maturity stuff that we've cited, right? As far as like maybe not being locked in all the time, like that type of stuff. He's only 20 years old, Sean. He is not 21 yet. He will not be 21 until March. So he's a young cat, man, which NFL teams are going to love. They're going to look at him and be like, it's a young dude. We can figure it out. We can get some out of him. He's got high upside. You know, there's a lot to be learned, though, about Blake Fisher later this month. I think that he has a chance to rise to somewhere on day 2, probably more late day 2 in the 3rd round range, or maybe he doesn't check a couple of those boxes and he falls a little bit. So it's going to be a huge week for Blake Fisher in its entirety, man. Like, there's not one thing I'm looking forward to Blake Fisher: interviews, being able to check in with measurements, and then testing on the field. There's a lot that Blake Fisher has to gain later this month in Indianapolis.
I think he's very well equipped to answer any questions physically that a team might have. The biggest question, I hope they're preparing, they're going to ask him about off-field stuff. That teams are going to want to know, like, because they're going to find out. Yeah. Like, whatever they need to find out, they're going to find out. And he needs to be straightforward.
It's nothing criminal. It's nothing like to the serious extent. It's just maturity stuff, right? Like, and it's a question that everyone is going to get questioned. especially when you're young like him, right? Like he's 20 years old. He's not even going to be 21 when the combine finishes. So there's going to be a lot of questions, and there should be a lot of questions. There has to be in this process.
I hope he takes it serious. I hope he's straightforward. Don't try to avoid it. You're 20. Be honest, because they want to know, are you worth the investment?
Exactly.
Because we're sitting with you because we like you, the player. That's why we're talking to you. That's why we're taking time. But we have to back up the way we feel by asking these questions. And that's going to be vitally important. And then on top of that, I would ask you, because you talked about if he becomes a riser, he can get up to that third round. Who, in your opinion, would fall more in love with him? The scouts or the O-line coaches of NFL teams?
O-line coaches. O-line coaches. I was literally texting a buddy about Blake Fisher this morning, who's doesn't have Notre Dame allegiance at all. We're just kind of talking about him as a prospect. And I literally said that I think that an O-line coach is going to be super excited about Blake Fisher because, again, you talk about the age, you talk about the body type. That's another thing, too, with the measurements. I'm curious to see what he weighs in at. I liked him better at 325 than I did at 310 this past year. I liked him a little bit heavier than what he was this past year. But I think that makeup, right, as far as he'll probably hit most thresholds. I think his arm length is going to be a little bit borderline from the offensive tackle percentage, but like we'll see what it ends up coming in at. But regardless, he's got a big frame, big body that can put on added weight. He's only 20 years old. And regardless of what you thought of how Blake played this past year, Sean, he was still a 2-year plus starter at Notre Dame, which means something. That
left tackle as a true freshman.
Yep. Left tackle. So has some experience playing left tackle, not a ton, but then has 2 years of starting experience at right tackle. So that versatility, I think, is a big sell as well. It'll be a big help. Blake has a lot to prove in Indianapolis, and he's got a lot of money on the line, man. He does. He's one of the few guys that I would argue there's variance to his draft perspective. Like he could rise a ton. He could fall a good bit. I mean, there's variance there. There is.
Yeah.
Defensive side of the football, I was a little surprised. I don't know if you agree. Well, actually, let me phrase that a little differently because that might come off a little disrespectful. I wasn't surprised that Javontae Jean-Baptiste got a combine invite, but I am a little bit worried about this one, Sean. I'm a little bit worried because the edge spot is a position, whether you are a 4-3 hand in the dirt, 3-4 stand up, or a combination of the two. Athletic traits matter so much. When you're talking about the best in the business, the best pass rushers in the NFL, typically they are the best athletes, arguably on the team. I mean, they are, again, I mentioned Myles Garrett, who at 6'4 plus, 270 plus pounds, ran a 4.64, I think, and had a 40 plus inch vert, right? Like just some crazy numbers. Now, I'm a little worried, Sean, though, that Javontae is going to go there and just test as a very average or below average athletes. And after his Senior Bowl performance, which wasn't stellar, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't good either. Like it was just very underwhelming. I'm worried that he's not going to test quite up to the standards of what an NFL defensive end looks like. I'm a little worried, man. A little worried.
That's fair. That's fair to think that. I would be concerned. I would say, like, yo, look, he was recruited by Ohio State, transferred to Notre Dame. So obviously, you would expect him to have some level of athleticism. And I think he might be in a place where the strength part is more important because the tape is the tape. So he might have a ceiling of, well, I need to at least run in this range. Like just let me get to this range because I'm not about to wow anybody. But if I can run in this range and prove, in the strengths that I'm a pretty strong kid, now that gives me an opportunity to attract some teams that maybe need to move me or could say, yo, you can play this position or you can play in this scheme. And I don't think he's just going to be one of those guys that's going to come in like the Georgia guys, like a Quay Walker that just came in and just wowed everybody. But it really didn't. The tape didn't line up with what they saw athletically. He might be working in reverse. Like, yo, I need to show some things that the tape doesn't confirm to get some attention from teams.
And I loved a lot of what I saw from Javontae this year, Sean. He outplayed my
Mm-hmm.
expectations. I thought he did all the dirty work that you like to see in these evaluations. I'll make a claim here. My claim would be that Javontae Jean-Baptiste is going to stick on a roster for several years in the NFL, but I'm not as much. I'm actually I'm more certain that he sticks on a roster than I am he gets drafted this year, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a line here. I think if we're talking about a guy that has a lot, some to gain here, Javontae I think is on the borderline of being a drafted player, 6th to 7th round, or being a priority free agent. I think that he's right on the cusp there. So a good athletic showing after a underwhelming Senior Bowl, I think could help him potentially to cement being drafted late on day 3. I think that he has that type of upside to him. But regardless, I actually would bet on Javontae sticking for a little bit, man. I would bet on him sticking a little bit because I just think he has those. Some people call it make it traits. I call it
Yeah.
sticking points. I think that he has a
Yeah.
sticking point on a roster because he does all the little things that you want a grinder to do. A guy that is going to play at the point of attack, going to set the edge, going to play special teams, going to be there every single day. I think he makes it. I'm just not sure that he's going to do anything in Indianapolis that's going to wow us and make him a highly drafted player.
Does he remind you? Because this, especially with Mike Elston, when he was coaching the defensive line in Notre Dame, where Notre Dame had guys that you didn't know how they would test, but you knew they would stick. You knew they would stick. I would think like maybe a Romeo Okwara, like
there's some parallels to Romeo. There's some parallels.
Yeah,
I can see parallels there. Yeah.
And Romeo has stuck with the Lions, like it has become valuable, played. His brother has stuck. I thought his brother actually would be more productive in the NFL than he was because of the athleticism, but
that's the fine line, Sean. His
yes,
brother,
it is.
Julian Okwara, looks the part of a high-level
Mm-hmm.
NFL pass rusher. But Romeo had the sticking point. He had the make it traits, right? He was super physical and relentless. And Julian was incredibly gifted, but never really put it together, right? And I think that's why you've seen Romeo be a lot more productive in the NFL than Julian, because he had that sticking point. He had that floor that we always talk about. It's interesting comparison there for sure. Interesting. So yeah, but I think Javontae has a chance to stick. It's just going to come down to getting in the right building and then just grinding every single day, which I think he has a chance to do. Linebackers, and then we'll get to the most important medical check of this draft process for almost any player outside of maybe Peyton Wilson from NC State. Linebackers, so we'll talk about these two together because we need to get to some recruiting updates here in a little bit as well. Maris Loifau, Will linebacker, was at the Senior Bowl. 6'2", 239 pounds, 34-inch arms, 79-inch wingspan. Will be joined by his teammate, J.D. Bertrand, who, we'll talk about polar opposites, Sean. Very different football players. J.D., super steady, pretty good in a straight line, but not the twitched up athlete, obviously, that Marist has, that he brings to the table. This week, athletically, is big for Maris Loifau. Not as big for JD, because I don't think, look, I expect JD to run somewhere in the 4.6s. I do. I think he's going to run better than people think, but you're not drafting JD Bertrand because of his great athleticism, right? You're drafting him for what he's going to do in those meeting rooms that we talked about. Sam Hartman. He's going to go on the board. He's going to talk about defensive structure. He's going to talk about where guys should be lining up, what gaps they have, what his responsibility is in this certain situation. Those are the things that you're drafting JD Bertrand for. You're going to draft Maris Loifau, though, because he's twitched up, athletic, explosive, can play in space. Very different weeks coming up for Maris Loifau and JD Bertrand. Maris needs to test really well, show out as an athlete. JD needs to do the things behind the scenes that we've talked about a ton already.
Well, they checked some boxes at the Senior Bowl. The fact that they got the invite to the Senior Bowl, and JD Bertrand is going to be that. JD Bertrand is going to be very Wisconsin linebackerish when it comes to the NFL. Like, dude, I told you, like, Jack Sanborn is like beloved up here. This dude has his own following and cult. Like, You see Leo Chanel with the Chiefs, and in spot, he's making
Jack
plays.
Sanborn get replaced this year? Didn't Jack Sanborn get replaced this year?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and still, dude, people were calling for him to replace Edwards in the starting lineup at the start of the year. Like
Edwards is a good player, man. Edwards is a good player.
Yeah, but
Edwards, another Wisconsin Badger. TJ Edwards,
yes,
another one for you, Sean. Yep.
So I think JD is going to be. I think JD's just really smart. That's invaluable in the NFL to have a guy, especially as a backup, that you can depend on, that can make the calls, make the checks, get the defense in line, and then play really, really good special teams. That's JD Bertrand is going to walk in camp and people are going to be like, man, we love that kid. Oh, dude, we love that dude. We got that dude in the 5th, the 6th, except even if he ends up being an undrafted free agent, he's going to stick and play in the NFL. He just is. And Maris is the guy that the scouts will, oh man, they're going to fall in love with a group of plays. They're going to have plays on film. They're going to be like, oh boy, if he can just stay, if we can get him to stay healthy, we can get him. We can get him kind of like the Packers with Quay Walk. We believe we can get him to play at an elite level. It just happens all the time, Ryan. You know it. So
they're going to do it. They're going to do it.
Yeah. So Maris literally might get drafted higher than JD just because, someone's going to fall in love with him, but
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
If you had to bet which one would stick?
Probably JD more likely to stick 6+ years in the NFL, I would say. Yeah. But I would also say that Maris is probably more likely to be a starter at some point than JD, if that makes sense. That's the distinction, I think. I was trying to look back to my notes, Sean. What was the one game that Maris had that was crazy? Was it North Carolina State? Was that the one that he had that was just that was probably the best Maris has ever played? I'm trying to look at my notes real quick.
On the road against North Carolina, though.
Yes.
You remember somebody was either suspended or hurt, and he had to start the first half, I believe. Maris was playing because he was chasing Drake May all over the field. He was blitzing, and I remember that.
Yeah.
That was one of his good games too.
Maris has had a couple games where it's about as high of highs in this linebacker class you're going to see. The problem is that there are games where he just isn't there, man. He just isn't there. It's just not. So there's a lot of variance to Maris. We'll see what his outcome is, and we'll know very shortly. Sean, last guy we wanted to hit on here, save the one that is on a rise already this draft season, but has a big question mark still to be answered in Indianapolis. That's cornerback Cam Hart. Cam came into at the Senior Bowl with 32 7/8 inch. He was 6'2" and 7/8, so nearly 6'3". He had 32 5/8 inch arms, which is a great number for a corner, and he had I think it was almost a 78-inch wingspan, Sean, 204 pounds. To say very easily here, Cam Hart is how you draw up what someone would like an NFL corner to look like. He is long as heck, strong, and athletic. That's what you look like. You want it to look like Cam Hart. That is what the body type you want in an NFL corner. And it shouldn't be much of a surprise, but he went to the Senior Bowl and had a great week. Was great. It shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that saw him in 2023 because at some points, other teams were just like, you know what? We're not going to throw at number 5 anymore. That's just not a good idea for us. We're just not going to do it. And I expect personally, based upon things I'm hearing, I expect him running the 4.4s, 4.4 high, probably 4.46, 4.47, somewhere in that ballpark at 6 foot, almost 6'3", which would be a great number. I spent the test just solid to good in every aspect. He's going to check a lot of boxes athletically, Sean. But what is going to make or break Cam Hart's evaluation, and it is going to make or break it, guys, it's either in a good way or a bad way, is what the medicals look like. It's going to break it, guys, because we are talking about a defensive player here, Sean, that has had multiple shoulder injuries. I know some people say he's a corner. You don't have to tackle as much. Sure. But he's also a defensive player with bad shoulders at the end of the day. And there might be an opportunity where Cam might have to play special teams early on in his career to stick. And if that is the case, then you definitely have to use your shoulders. Like, there's no doubt about that one, right? So medicals is going to be the biggest thing, Sean, in Indianapolis. I pray that Cam is able to put that stuff to rest. But until it is to rest, it is a question mark that is on the table.
I just really want this young man. I pull for guys like Cam, and he's another one of those guys where, the film, dude, film-wise, he's a first-round pick. Like, film-wise. Now people just have to confirm. Well, I won't say first round. As film, I would say he's a top 50, 75 player. I'm very comfortable that Cam Hart's going to be in that range. If he comes in and runs a high 4.4, teams are going to be like, oh, okay. If he comes in and runs a low 4.5, teams are going to be like, okay, we can work with that. We can work with that. And I think he's in a very advantageous situation that, like you said, the medicals are the big thing for him and a player like Peyton Wilson, right? Because Peyton Wilson's definitely going to run good. That's the one thing you don't have to worry about. He's going to run good.
He's probably going to run the 4.4s, man. That kid can fly.
Which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy. So when you think about that, I'm pulling for this young man. I really want him to go because I know Marlon Humphrey might leave. I know they have some other free agents. I would love him to go home and play with Kyle. And that's one of his best friends.
I was going to say they're best friends. I'm sure he'll be advocating for Cam, like, get Cam here, right?
Absolutely. I would love, because he was in the room with Kyle at the draft. I would love to see it reversed. Kyle with him, wherever he's having his draft party, and to see his name called by the Baltimore Ravens. That would be absolutely perfect, right? Because he fits what they do. He absolutely fits what they do. So, I'm pulling for this kid, man. If he ran sub 4.5 in his first 40, I wouldn't even run it again. I wouldn't even run it again.
Medicals check out. As long as the medicals check out, I agree.
That's it. Yep. I wouldn't even run it again. Just, man. I don't care if it's 4.49 and 4.499. Stop. Just stop. That's all we need. That's it. All we need is that 1,000th of a second under 4.5, and we're good. That's all that's needed.
It's funny, Sean. There's only one player I can ever recall that had to run 3.40s at the combine. Do you remember this one? There's one player, because typically you only run 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you a story of a young man named Luke Kuechly, who was coming out of Boston College. He ran 4.57, 4.58, something like that, right, on his first 40. And there was this big opinion out there, which was dumb, but it was out there. He's a white linebacker. He can't be fast, right? Sure. So he runs 4.58, and some people are shocked there, right? But then he goes on the second one, he runs like 4.67. So like 4.58 to 4.67, that's a big discrepancy, right? Like that's a pretty large split there. So they asked him to run it again, Sean, and then he ran 4.59, and they're like, all right, man, you're good. We got you, brother. You're going to go top 10. We got you. But that's the only player I can ever remember running 3 40-yard dashes at the combine they were at, because the third one they were like, it was just such a different number, first and second, that we need to be able to verify what the real time is type of situation. So sorry, little quick tidbit there. That's the combine, folks. We're going to talk more in depth about it in a couple weeks. Yes.
Can I clarify something real quick? Because I saw the chat.
Of course.
When we were talking about Wisconsin type with JD, we're talking measurables. We're talking about productive linebackers that the film shows, but they get drafted low. That's Wisconsin linebackers. They end up going 5th, 6th.
Borland.
Borland, TJ Edwards, Chenal, like, dude, Jack Sanborn. That's the Wisconsin type. And I mean, look, TJ Edwards, when he was at Wisconsin, 6'1", 230. Leo Chenal, I saw somebody in the chat say Leo Chenal was 6'3". TJ Edwards, like I said, 6'1", 230. Jack Sanborn is like 6'1", 6'2", 220 something.
And Chris Borland was like, JD was 6'1" even, and Chris Borland, to add on to that, was sub 6 foot. He was like 5'11" and some change coming out of Wisconsin.
Right.
So,
he retired, right? 49.
Yeah, after After his first or second year, he retired because I think
Yeah,
he had some head injuries or something like that, so he had to step
yeah,
away. But he was Sean. He was good. I remember he was like in the defensive rookie of the year voting during his rookie year for San
he
Francisco.
was.
Man, he was a
He
dog. He
was.
was good.
He was
He
a
was a really
dog.
good
He
player.
was a good pickup. Hey, we
Yep.
just to toot the Chiefs horn a little
Yep.
bit more. All right.
Yes.
Um,
Sure.
you know who the best defensive back was for the 49ers the last 2 years?
For the 49ers.
Yeah, their number one cornerback,
Number
Ward.
7. What's his name? Ward. Yeah.
James Ward.
Tredavious Ward. Yep.
Who drafted
Yep.
him?
Yep. Yep.
Who
I
developed
know.
him? And then who let him
Funny
go
enough.
because Watson and McDuffie. Dude, I'm telling you, man. I see why you have a crush, evaluation scout crush on the Chiefs.
Chiefs do it right, man. The Chiefs do it right, my friends. They do it right. They are very good scouters. They're very good scouters. Yeah.
Most people would say, "Oh my God, they might let Snead go." Yeah, because they know, yes, they can draft
You have Watson
another
and
kid.
Joshua Williams, and yeah, you got guys. You got guys.
And they got the 32nd pick, and there'll probably be a really good defensive back there at 32.
Yeah. The only thing the Chiefs ever did that was dumb was they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire with their first round pick the one year. That was not a great pick.
Yeah,
but otherwise,
they can let him go now. He's off the books. So
yes, especially with Isaiah Pacheco doing his thing. So yes,
exactly.
But otherwise, you're never 100% obviously in scouting, and they've done a very, very good job to fill out the roster.
That's what playing with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson to do for you.
Hey man, he was really good in 2019, but if you would have looked at him, you're like, man, but he's 5'7", 200 pounds, and ran like 4'6" something. You're like, I don't know if that's going to translate that well, but hey man, we all make mistakes.
Exactly.
That's the early combine preview though, folks. We're going to some recruiting talk here next. Before we do, hit that like button for us. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. If you're listening to us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. Also go to boards.irishbreakdown.com for all the latest recruiting and team intel. We'll be back with you all for some recruiting talk here next on the Irish Breakdown podcast. All right, Sean, there's some stuff that we just kind of want to hit on quickly. This is going to be a little bit more of a quicker segment for you all. So if you want to start sending in some mailbag questions, we're going to get to the mailbag next after the recruiting conversation here. But we kind of want to do a little bit of a recruiting update for some players that I think Notre Dame is trending in a very great direction with. I want to make sure that we keep you all updated with some of the recent news. I know, Sean, we were on the phone for that one day? What was it, like 40-something minutes? Just talking about some kind of like latest nuggets, some stuff we're getting. Yeah.
Some things that were pretty eye-opening, like.
Yeah. Eye-opening in both directions as well, I would say. Some very good, some ones that you're like, not sure about that one, dog. But that's another conversation for another day. The good that we'll talk about today is where Notre Dame's standing with certain players, Sean. So let's start on the offensive line, where Notre Dame already has commitments from Will Black in the 2025 class, offensive tackle out of the state of Connecticut. They also have a recent commit over the last week from star offensive lineman out of Waukesha, Wisconsin Catholic Memorial. That is Owen Strebig, who we've been talking about now for months and months and months at this point. As of today, right now, there is one offensive line spot in the 2025 class right now. And that means that there is a opinion out there, and we believe that Notre Dame will stay at 3 offensive linemen in the 2025 class. And I know some people are going to be very against that, but remember, numbers is a little bit of a tough conversation sometimes, and sometimes numbers get extended. Sometimes you have limited numbers depending on, what you're projecting for your roster to come back the next year and those types of circumstances. So the 2 offensive linemen that have been on the board for Notre Dame that we've talked about a ton that are not committed to Notre Dame. One is Matty Austine, which is out of the state of Connecticut as well. He goes to Brunswick School. He's the teammate of Ethan Long, who's the star safety committed in the 2025 class. The other guy has been Jack Lang out of Eureka, Missouri high school offensive lineman, 6'8", 275 pounds. So, Sean, the recent here, and we put this on the message board a couple times. So if you haven't been on board.irishbreakdown.com, this is going to be new for you. But if you're on the sites, if you're on the message board, you would know a lot of this information already. So things are trending, Sean, which isn't a huge surprise, in a great direction, specifically with Matty Augustine, the offensive tackle, again, out of Greenwich, Connecticut, Brunswick School, teammate of Ethan Long, safety committed in the 2025 class. He is 6'7", 290 pounds. He was listed at about 260, 265 before his past season, but we know that he had gained a lot of weight. He was originally a 2024 recruit, but had reclassified it to the 2025 class, and Notre Dame has been pushing for him hard since he was here last offseason and camped before his junior year. Now, Sean, things seem to be trending in a great direction here, and I think that you can chalk this one up to the movement in a good direction for Notre Dame is based upon relationships is a big thing, right? So at the 6'7", 290-pound offensive tackle, has a very great relationship, obviously, with Ethan Long, that I've mentioned his name twice already. They are very good friends, play on the football team, play on the basketball team together. Also, he has a good relationship. I've spoken to Will Black about Matty in the past. I've spoken to Owen Strebig about Matty in the class. He is in constant communication with both those players, as well as Joe Rudolph, who, hey, Sean, we'll see how good of a coach Joe Rudolph is, but I got no concerns with him as a recruiter. I mean, the guy gets stuff done on the recruiting trail. So things apparently are, and Salty's correct me, it's Greenwich. Sorry, Salty. It's Greenwich, Connecticut. My apologies, man. But things are in a very good spot with Matty Augustine, and we expect Notre Dame to continue to gain momentum moving forward here.
Very interesting, man. Once Owen Strebig made his commitment, we felt like, okay, something's going to happen. This is definitely going to cause the dominoes to fall, whether it's Notre Dame kind of declaring the direction they want to go, or whether one of the remaining guys on the tackle board make the decision for them. And you know what we're hearing right now in the vibe. I know our preference if we had to choose. I know we wouldn't mind having both in the class.
Like, we're very greedy people here. We're very greedy here. Yes, sure.
By all means, get greedy. But, you know, you have to sit back, and there were some things like, I'll point to Caleb Brewer being high on Harry Heastand's list, and then Joe Rudolph comes in, and for some reason,
Did you see the senior highlights I sent you the other day? Did you see the senior highlights I sent you the other day? That was Caleb Brewer, by the way.
Yes, I did.
So people that don't know, I literally texted Sean the other day just the link to Caleb Brewer's senior highlight tape. I didn't say a single word. I had no context at all. I just sent over the highlight tape because I came across it, Sean. I had not seen a senior highlight tape, and then I saw a senior highlight tape, and I was like, man, he's pretty dang good, brother. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Still a 3-star, though. Still a 3-star, Sean. Still a 3-star going to Penn State, but yeah.
But, you know, that just goes to show you, and, you know, you never know. You just never know. So we'll see, man. I think Notre Dame, before the blue and gold game, look, if you had to put an over-under on commitments in the class leading up to April 20th, or even after the blue and gold game, because you expect someone to commit at the blue and gold game.
Probably.
What would you say, about 18, 19 in the class, maybe?
Yeah, because what are we at now? 15? We have 15 now with Elijah Burris, I think, right? So, Sean, I would say this. I would say before official start in June, right? In June, I would say. I would guess that we probably have 3 to 4 more in the class at that point.
Yeah.
I think that that's a safe number, right?
Yeah.
So things are obviously trending in a great direction with Matty Augustine. Again, it's due to great relationships he has. I think the process is starting to wind down a little bit. He's seen pretty much he's seen every school that he wants to see at this point, right? So now it's about Notre Dame potentially closing down the road here and We'll see when a commitment date is made and all those types of things, right? So Notre Dame is in a great spot with Matty Augustine. Obviously, for folks that can do easy, rational thinking here, that means that most likely, if things do trend in a great direction with Matty Augustine, and it does end kind of soon, that more than likely Notre Dame will not be able to take Jack Lang and will not push for Jack Lang. If we can use just kind of our, logistical ability.
Deductive reasoning, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
deductive reasoning says that if I'm telling you all that things are in a good place with Matty Augustine, and if that recruitment does end in the near future, I think Notre Dame is definitely the favorite. There's no doubt. And if we do get to a point in this hypothetical where Notre Dame has their 3-man class of Owen Strebig, Will Black, and Matty Augustine, that means that Notre Dame is going to stop at 3 more than likely. I don't see anything in the immediate future that would make them press for a 4th offensive lineman. Could that change down the road? It's always possible. So that's why you maintain relationships, right? That's why you over recruit at points. But as of right now, 3 is the number, and Notre Dame's in a great spot with Matty Augustine. The other 2 players I want to hit on here quick, Sean, then we'll get into a mailbag again, folks. Mailbag questions in the chat at any point. I think we already got like 16-ish in this chat right now, so there's a ton already. But 2 defensive backs I want to talk about, Sean, because the cornerback recruiting under Mike Mickens has been stellar over the last couple of years. We've talked about this a lot. Notre Dame is off to a great start with Cree Thomas out of Brophy Prep in Phoenix, Arizona. But they do want at least 2 more corners in the class. There's a possibility that they shoot for 3 more, but that's going to be, dependent upon numbers, obviously, and certain players on the board. But we do know that Notre Dame wants to get to 3 corners in the 2025 class. And the 2 guys that we know Notre Dame is incredibly high on and continuing to push. There's actually 3 guys that Notre Dame is very high on. But 2 guys that I think Notre Dame is probably in the best position with as of today. We'll go one by one here. One is Dallas Golden, star defensive back who out of Tampa Bay, Florida, Berkeley Prep, that could play corner. He could play safety. He could play wide receiver. He could play running back. If you're a team that likes to run the option, he could play quarterback. Like, he can do whatever the heck he wants. Dallas Golden's that talented of an athlete, Sean. We have been reporting over the last couple weeks, and I think that things are still just trending in a great direction here. Coming out of that junior day, Notre Dame just knocked that one out of the park, man. I think that they have asserted themselves at that point to be the team to beat for Dallas Golden. The further we move forward here, I feel better and better about the situation that they are in right now. There is no absolute commitment date. There's not even an absolute timeline. The only thing we know is that Dallas Golden wants the only thing we know is that Dallas Golden wants to be committed before his senior season. That's all we know for sure, right? That is the timeline. As far as, is it before officials, after officials, we don't really have the full understanding of that. It's kind of a when it happens type of situation with Dallas. But Notre Dame's in a great spot, Sean. If you ask me today, who's the team to beat for Dallas Golden? The answer would be Notre Dame. And I think that they have separated themselves pretty well from the pack, man. There's other schools, some of the Florida schools, a couple SEC schools that have done a great job with Dallas overall. But I think Notre Dame has really asserted themselves in position to hopefully close this one out somewhat soon. Again, no definite timeline, but Notre Dame has done everything that they need to do in order to be the team to beat for Dallas Golden.
So in saying that, it's very interesting that he might be one of the most important recruits, in my opinion, in this class. I know we love his film, but I think as impressive as the class has been, I think this type of athlete and this type of talent, getting him in the class is prevalent. And the fact that they've done an incredible job as a staff with this young man and his family, getting him locked in is absolutely amazing. And if it continues to trend the way we feel like it's trending, and he ends up, and we just talked about possible guys, we'll see if he sets a commitment date or releases a top 5 or.
Yeah.
But, he could be one of those candidates, for, like you said, one of those dominoes before the official visit season for Notre Dame, which, man, getting a kid from that area, that talented, at that position,
Mm-hmm.
that,
And
that would
and
be
and
absolutely
people
amazing.
and Sean, people are going to have PTSD when talking about Berkeley Prep because not only Keon
Hmm.
Keeley, but I know Nicholas Petit-Friere was also a big loss for Notre Dame out of
Hmm.
Berkeley Prep as well. So I get it, man, but I'm just telling y'all, things are in a good spot right now with Dallas Golden. Notre Dame has to close, obviously, but they've put themselves as the team to beat and in pole position, I believe. If this thing ends
Yeah.
anytime soon, I think they're in a great spot there,
You keep
obviously.
chopping wood, right? Schools
Absolutely.
like that, programs like that, schools like uh, Berkeley Prep, Modern Day, where I guess Chris Henry Jr. is now transferring to Modern Day,
Seriously?
So
Is he
yeah,
really?
I think it
I didn't
happened
think that way.
yesterday. So
Interesting.
schools like that, you lose out on kids, you just keep doing. You keep going, you keep building, you keep chopping
Yeah.
wood because it's obvious that they're putting out talent, top talent every
Yes.
year. So just
Yep.
because you lose out on Petit Friere or like you said, Keon Keeley, doesn't make a difference. Who else you got? Who's next?
Right.
Who's next?
Right.
Same thing with IMG. Okay, we didn't get
Yep.
it. Who's next? Who you got next year? It's the same thing. You keep going, and this staff has done that.
I was looking at Dallas Golden's recruiting rankings the other day, Sean. It's so weird, man, how volatile it is. So you have two platforms. On 3 and 247 Sports see him as top 100 player. On 3 is number 57 in the country. 247 has the number 76 overall player in the country. But then ESPN
Mhm.
only has him at 156, and then Rivals has him at 210. I'm just like, man. Everybody has him as a 4-star, but I'm like, if there are 209 players better than Dallas Golden, then dang, man, that's a heck of a class, brother. That's a heck of a class. Because I
Yeah,
watched the kid and I'm like, that's a top 50 kid. Like, in my opinion, I agree much more with On 3 in this scenario as far as how they view Dallas Golden.
yeah.
So, in a great spot with Dallas Golden, Sean, if you ended there and you took a 2-man cornerback class of Dallas Golden and Cree Thomas,
Mm.
brother. And you could argue that's the best cornerback class under Mike Mickens, in my opinion.
Oh,
You could
heck
make
yeah,
that argument. You could.
yeah.
You know what pushed it way over the top, though, Sean, as unquestionable the best cornerback class for Mike Mickens? If they're able to get Mark Zachary, who's 2025 cornerback out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Ben Davis plays two ways for Ben Davis. He's a star receiver, played safety this past year. Notre Dame's recruiting him as a corner, which he played as a sophomore. Sean, if Notre Dame is able to get all three of those kids, then brother. Because the big thing after that is that if you get Mark Zachary, Notre Dame is going to, I promise you guys all this, they are going to try to make the Devin Williams situation work and try to get him in the class too. They're not going to stop recruiting Devin Williams out of Buford, Georgia. They're not going to, because they love Devin Williams. But as of today, Mark Zachary is more likely than Devin Williams because we believe that the timeline is more likely that Mark Zachary selects a school sometime earlier this offseason than what it is for Devin Williams. Devin Williams is not going to make a commitment until after officials, before senior year. But trust me, Notre Dame is still going to recruit Devin Williams. But this one is not a big change overall. Notre Dame's in a great spot with Mark Zachary, Sean. And Mark Zachary is a potential top 50 player in the country in his own right. Last time I looked, I think someone had him at least in the 70s, if I remember correctly, because this kid is a very, so 247 Sports actually has him as number 63 player in the country. So they're very high on Mark Zachary. Yeah. So obviously he's an in-state kid. Notre Dame has put in a lot of legwork here. I would say the top two schools right now for Mark Zachary are Notre Dame and Michigan. Those are the two tops. But the good thing that Notre Dame has in their favor is what, Sean?
Safety
What do they
coach
have in their
left.
favor, my friend? Yep.
All the coaches on the defensive side of the ball in Michigan, finito.
Yes.
Finito.
And especially their defensive back coach. Their defensive back coach is now, I believe, with the Los Angeles Chargers. I believe he left for out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have Mike Mickens. Still have Mike Mickens, buddy. So Notre Dame and Michigan are going to be in a battle here down the stretch. Believe again, I would say Notre Dame is the leader. And they have a chance with the coaching changes in Michigan to potentially end this one sometime soon. And again, Sean, I will say for people in the back here, say it again. If you get a 3-man class, not even including Devin Williams, if you get a 4-man class with Devin Williams included, then that is one of the best defensive back hauls probably ever in Notre Dame history. And I'm not talking about like extending way, way back, right? But if you get a 3-man class of Creed Thomas, Dallas Golden, and Mark Zachary, buddy, when's the last time they had a cornerback haul like that? Honestly, I'm asking. I don't know the answer to that. It has to be probably 15 years, 20 years. Like it has to be. I can't remember one in my lifetime that is as impressive as that. I don't know.
Oh, what was the Darren? For some reason, I remember that they had the Darren Walls class on paper was pretty good, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll try to find the Darren Walls class.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think because they had Darren Walls and another kid.
Okay. Did you know Darren Walls is a cornerback coach for Albany, and he's also a defensive coordinator for Albany now? So he's in
I did know that. I did know that. Yeah. You know how I knew? I just recently found out he actually attended the Connecticut Notre Dame women's basketball game and took a picture with Neil Ivey.
Really?
And I saw it on Twitter, and he was tagged in it, and that's when I found out. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, so I had the 2006 class in front of me, Sean. So the defensive backs in that class were Darren Walls, and this is just defensive backs. This isn't corner exclusive, but they had Rashawn McNeil, who I think was he was a high recruit. Darren Walls was the top guy in that class. McNeil was second. And then they had Sergio Brown, Jihad Gaines, and Leonard Gordon. That was their class.
Yeah, and they lost somebody late. That was big time in that class. I think it was a kid from Maryland. That was big time. Yeah, I think at one point that class was supposed to be really good. I remember Lou Samoji talking about it, and then they lost a kid late, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember his name.
According to Rivals, they had 2 5-stars in that class. One was James Aldridge, and the other was Sam Young.
The running back. Running back out of Maryville. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Demetrius Jones is in that class, man. Chicago, Illinois guy.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Had no business being recruited to Notre Dame at that time.
No, it didn't really fit the play style.
He didn't.
Right?
He wasn't a play. Yeah. No, he wasn't. He was a RPO option. Run first quarterback. That's what he was in high school. And
he's a dynamic athlete though, right, man? Like he was a really good athlete. If I remember
his first start against South Florida was just that was a disaster. Or the first time he got in, I don't think he started, but it was just a disaster.
Fit matters, man. Fit matters when we're talking about developing players, man. So, but the cornerback
they also
2025. Yep.
I think there was I was about to tell something that's not right.
Is that right?
It made me think about something, but it was a different year. Never mind.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking at this class now. Oh, remember Conrad Royland? Remember that guy?
Yeah.
This class is interesting. Chris Stewart, big offensive lineman.
Big Chris Stewart. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Who else is in this class? It ended up not being a great class.
No.
I feel like this class was a little bit more hype than actual good
production.
Sergio Brown ended up being a solid play at Notre Dame. James Aldridge didn't end up turning into what you thought. Sam Young was good, but not great, right? Like he was a little bit of a, I guess, disappointment compared to expectation because like he was a dude. I remember I used to get the Under Armour All-American Bowl magazine, and Sam Young was on there, like 5-star Sam Young. You know what I mean? Like he was supposed to be that guy. Yeah. And I know he was good at Notre Dame, but not quite as
the Florida kid, right?
Yeah, man, he's from Fort Lauderdale. What school did Sam Young? Wait, did Sam Young go to? Was he a Berkeley Proctor? Oh no, he went to St. Thomas Aquinas. He was St. Thomas Aquinas.
St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay.
Yep. All right, well, folks, but cornerback recruiting 2025 looking great. We also obviously hit on Matty Augustine and trending in a great direction there. We're going to Mailbag next, your favorite time of the show. So more Mailbag questions in the chat. We'll be here as long as you guys want us to be. Before we get there, though, make sure you hit that subscribe button for us. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. That like button, of course, as always, if you're listening to us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, whether that is Apple, Spotify, or anything in between. Make sure you subscribed on there as well and put a 5-star review. Make sure to put an actual review in there with some words. Would be very much appreciated there. It helps the algorithm a little bit. And go to boards.irishbreakdown.com for all the latest recruiting news. But we'll check you guys next here on the mailbag on the Irish Breakdown podcast. All right, Sean, mailbag time. Mailbag time. Let's get rocking and rolling here, man. Have a lot of great questions. This one was one that I actually wanted to bring up during the first section when we talked about the combine, Sean, because this is an interesting one. Brian, I know, talked about this one, I believe, on the message board, and then he also was talking to me before the show about this one. But Coach Koch, what's up, Coach? Said Thomas Harper was not given a combine invite. Does he have a path to get drafted, or is the PFA, UDFA routes seem more likely now? Well, Sean, to start the conversation out with, Coach Koch, for these combine invites that we see, those come directly from the NFL. So typically, if a player's not invited, that's usually an indicator that maybe the NFL is a little lower on them comparative to maybe what some media are, for instance, right? So I would say that we can deduce based upon the situation here is that the NFL is probably not super high on Thomas Harper. And I think the reason for that is twofold, Sean. One, he's a little bit of a tweener from a talent, like a play style perspective. He plays nickel, but I would say that he's not the most quick change of direction guy of all time. So I'm not sure he's a nickel in the NFL. And he's also a little bit of a smaller body type for a true safety. So he's kind of in like that middle ground of like, is he a safety? Is he a nickel? What exactly is he on the next level? So being a tweener is not always a good thing. It's actually usually a bad thing in NFL circles. So I think he's just a little bit of a tweener. So I think that more than likely today, free agents, probably a priority free agent, because he did play pretty well for Notre Dame this year, Sean. I know you were a fan of obviously what he was able to do in 1 year at Notre Dame.
Well, I think it's an important position, right? You look at what Tariq Bracy was able to do. If you can have a successful nickel or really good nickel in today's football, whether it's college or the NFL, like look at Michigan and how important Sarah Steele was for them. Like that nickel has to be a really good guy. And for the most part, Thomas Harper played really well, man, when he was healthy for Notre Dame. So if you watch his film, you know, some team probably will say, yo, the measurables really aren't there, but yo, maybe he ends up being an Aloy Gilman type where from Notre Dame, the measurables aren't there, but the kid has some film that makes you intrigued. And then, you know, he ends up, like you said, undrafted free agent. But Notre Dame players, for some reason, just know they are very attractive to NFL teams because of the culture of Notre Dame. Like, it's not a lot of foolishness coming out of Notre Dame as football players. So when they come to camp, they know what to do. They know how to operate. They know what's going to catch the eye of coaches, the level of professionalism. Like, dude, it gives them an upper hand in a sense. And, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if Thomas Harper is on a roster opening day for the NFL. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked because, like, this is what I'll say, Coach Koch, about Thomas Harper. Thomas Harper will be in a camp this offseason. There's no doubt in my mind. He will be in an NFL camp. From there, it's going to matter, one, how does the team see him? And two, how does he fit the role that they want to see for him on the defensive side of the football? And then, of course, the special teams value is going to have to come into that reality as well. So I think there's a path for Thomas Harper. I just think he's a little bit of a tweener, which kind of clouds. You want a guy that kind of fits easy in day three sometimes, right? A guy that comes in, you know what he is. He's a safety. He's a corner. He's a nickel. He might have something about him, a deficiency that is going to limit how good he can be, but ultimately you still know what he is. Like there's no guessing game there, right? So I think that's the challenge that Thomas Harper's going to have in front of him. I think he could end up being a good football player, man. I really do, but it's going to end up, situation is going to dictate a lot. It's going to dictate a lot. Let's get a couple of these out of the way until Sean gets back. Brandon Plesner says, was there any info regarding Cam Hart and any possible injury from the Senior Bowl? Do we know the severity? So, Brandon, to my knowledge, I don't think there really was severity. I know we actually were chatting about this a little bit, me and Brandon. And initial impulse after watching the play, Sean, is like, I was like, oh no, don't tell me Cam Hart just hurt his shoulder. Please don't tell me he just hurt his shoulder. Because it kind of looked like a little bit. It looked like he was holding a little bit, getting up. But to what we've been told is that it was a little bit of an ankle sprain, and it wasn't a severe one. It was just more after it happened, let's pull him out the rest of the game to make sure he doesn't re-injure anything, just kind of be tentative with it. So we expect Cam Hart to be a full go in Indianapolis and be able to test. So there's no major concerns there other than a little bit of a twisted ankle, which is good to see. Sean, I'm going to welcome you back with a very important question. Probably the most important question that's going to be asked today. We had Real Estate 2024 said, who would win in a fight, South Jersey or Chicago?
I am not familiar with South Jersey, so I'm not going to answer that question. I mean, I'm always going to defer to Chicago in most situations, but I kind of have respect for South Jersey. So
I will say this, and I will answer this question. I'm not going to deflect, Sean. Chicago would probably whoop South Jersey's buttocks. To be honest with you, I don't consider South Jersey like a tough place. Now, if we're talking about like Philadelphia versus Chicago, that might be a little bit of a tougher matchup, right? Because then you'll have some of the inner city guys that are really physically tough. Like you would probably beat me up, to be honest with you. Like you probably would. I'm just a soft South Jersey guy. You're a hard Chicago dude. So yeah, I'll defer to Chicago.
I don't know, man. It depends on what side. If you say west side, south side, yeah, I'll probably lean Chicago. If you say north side, South Jersey might have a shot.
Well, people are giving North Jersey too much credit in the chat.
Now,
South Jersey would beat North Jersey up.
What's the biggest metropolitan areas in South Jersey? South Jersey is closer to Philly, right?
Yeah, so I guess Camden.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, like where I'm at, I'm very west side of Jersey, right? Southwest. Okay. So I'm very close to Philly. Where I live now is like 40 minutes from Philly, but where I grew up is like 15 minutes over the bridge from Philly. So like very, very close to Philly. So
okay,
yeah. North Jersey, though, man. Someone gave North Jersey credit in the chat. Get out of here, man. Just a bunch of fake New York guys. That's all they are up there. We don't talk about those dudes. We don't talk about them. Yeah,
that's the caucus.
Philly would beat New York up. They would beat New York up, no doubt. Oh man. All right, let's get to the next one. Great question. Sean, we had one from Salty who just wanted to know, Ryan, how are the plans going for an IB get-together in Indianapolis going? Well, Salty, to be very honest with you, man, I haven't done any work on this, to be honest with you. I will make you a promise with Salty. Here's a promise. I don't promise much. If Sean Davis comes out for a night in Indianapolis, I will plan an IB get-together, okay? I will plan one, man. I will make it happen. I will tell everyone in the message board, hey, if you're in the Indianapolis area, this is what restaurant or bar we'll be at. So we'll be here from this time to that time. I will do that work only if Sean Davis comes. So, Sean, I hope that's not too much pressure, man. But there it is.
No, none at all. But my intentions are to come. So
I might have to start setting it up then. Start figuring it out a little bit.
You might have to, buddy. You might have to.
All right. Let's figure it out. We'll do it then. We'll do it. We'll make it happen, Salty. Salty, are you even... I don't even know if Salty's I think Salty's in the chat right now. Salty, are you near the Indianapolis area? I probably should know where you are about, at least area-wise, but are you a Indianapolis guy? Are you close by? I don't know. But yeah, I guess keep a lookout for an IB get-together or whatever in Indianapolis. I don't know. Just nobody embarrass me, okay? Nobody embarrass me while we're out there. But joking, obviously. All right, we have... Frank Sarah said, Sean, kind of a team question, and I'll kick it to you first, and we'll kind of talk about it. But Frank said, are you guys concerned about the defensive tackle depth for Notre Dame in 2024?
Not really. No. I'm more concerned about if the top two guys go down, what's the drop off? So I guess that might be part of depth concern, but as far as bodies and being able to play, not really.
Yeah.
I know Jason Onyé. I feel confident Jason Onyé is going to be actually a really good backup.
Yeah, I'm in on Jason Onyé, man, as a rotational
great
guy.
things. We heard great things all year about Devin Houston during practices. Sean Fabiliano is coming up with an attitude that he wants to play. No, I think comfortably they go 6 deep at the tackle positions.
Sean, someone asked me the same exact question before, and the answer is no. I'm not. I would think that when a Gabriel Rubio potentially is out, that I would be like, yeah, that's like because Gabriel Rubio would be a loss if he's not able to be on the team in the fall, right? Like that would be a loss in the fact that I think Gabriel Rubio is a good player. Like I really do. I think he's a really good rotational player, especially. But the fact that you do have Onyé coming back, the fact that you do have Devin Houston and Armel Mukum and Brandon Vernon potentially fitting inside and Sean Sevillano, like I'm not worried at all about depth. And Donovan Heinisch is another guy too. Like I'm not worried at all about the depth of defensive tackle. I actually think they're going to be really good as an overall unit. I don't know. Maybe I should be more worried, but I'm not. I'm not worried right now. I'm really not.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the pass rush from the outside. I'm worried more about where we're going to get pass rush from the edges more than what's going on the interior.
I'm definitely more worried about defensive end, so specifically Viper than I am a defensive tackle. I would agree about that. Yep. All right, we had Nicholas Grosh had a quick note here, Sean, that you asked about South Jersey, and he just said Willingboro, great athletes, starting with Carl Lewis. Yes, you can always find great athletes in Willingboro. There's no doubt about that. They put out some tremendous athletes. Camden has put out a lot more great athletes recently, especially Sean, from a football perspective. They've always put out a lot of great basketball players, but they put out you could look like Fidel Diggs that was at Texas A&M was a guy that came out pretty recently. Like they put out some guys, man. Hornsby that I think signed with Texas A&M this past cycle as well, the 2024 wide receiver Jalen Hornsby. So yeah, Camden's putting out a lot of really good athletes as well. But yes,
Camden, that's where the Wagners came from, right? The DJ, DeJuan.
Yep.
Milk.
Yep. I one of my biggest regrets is I was trying to get down to a game to watch DJ Wagner play because he did play at Camden High, but I was not able to watch him, unfortunately. But yeah. Yep. The Wagners both came from there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I'm always curious about DJ Wagner too, Sean. I haven't seen him at any point this season so far. Does he live up to the hype?
He is you know what? I don't
he's
like
Kentucky, right? Kentucky's where
he's Kentucky.
Right?
He's gonna be a one and done kid. You know, I just think if he played 2 years in Kentucky, he would be absolutely that due to physical talent, and no one can stop him from getting to the cup. They just it doesn't matter if you're playing him man to man. The quickness, the physicality, you know, his outside shot needs to get better, but but he's playing on a team where they have like 2 other freshman guards, and Shepard and I forget the other kid. He's basically a Tyrese Maxey clone from the Sixers.
Like, I know you're talking about. Someone talked about him before. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Dude,
he's good.
They have so much talent in the freshman class that he's not. I mean, he's playing well, but he's not hitting like 20 shots a game, right? Because he's playing with other great players. So,
dude, his dad was in high school. Sean, DeJuan Wagner was.
Oh yeah, you don't have to tell me.
I've seen highlights of him at Camden, man. Like he was
Rob Dillingham. Yeah, that's that kid's name, Rob Dillingham. And Dillingham is fantastic. Him and Shepard.
So he's like, I haven't seen Dillingham play. If he's like Maxey though, he has to just be a blur, right? Like he can just turn the corner whenever he wants, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I watch a lot of Tyrese since I'm a Sixers fan, man. That dude is a blur with the basketball, man. Like a blur. Crazy.
Yeah, Dillingham is literally plays just like Maxey did at Kentucky.
I dig it, man. I dig it. I'm a big fan of Maxey, man. He's a good football. I mean, football. He's a good basketball player. He's averaging like 25 plus a game right now, man. He made the All-Star team for the Sixers. So
yeah,
if Joel Embiid could ever stay healthy, then maybe they can make a run. I don't know, but yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
The process,
seriously.
right? The process.
Yeah. The process. Well, the process is over. Hopefully there's a championship at the end at some point. But yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the next one here. Interesting question. We had Coach Koch who says, what do you think of Carson Steele as a prospect and could he make a roster? So Carson Steele, of course, is the running back out of UCLA, was at Ball State his first 2 years and spent a year with Chip Kelly at UCLA. Coach Koch, he was actually one of the biggest combine snubs, I thought, in this class. Because I like Carson Steele. I would have a late round draftable grade on him. Now, running back is a tough position in the NFL because unless you have just some stalwart traits, there's a possibility that you could get undervalued a little bit. And you could get pushed down the board. And I don't think there's anything about Carson that necessarily I would say really stands out. I mean, he's a pretty strong, densely built kid. He's about 220 pounds. He's incredibly physical, but athletically, he's more smooth than he is explosive. Doesn't have great long speed, but he's a good back, man. I would bet that Carson Steele grabs onto a roster for a little bit in the NFL. I really do like Carson Steele a lot. Sean, I don't know if you saw. Oh, sorry.
Type of kid you pull for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting story, Sean. You don't usually see guys that started at Ball State end up declaring after 3 years of college. It doesn't happen too often, man. So
no,
it does not.
Is the running back from Missouri? His story is
Cody
incredible too. Yeah.
Yeah, Schrader. Yeah. Because he was a Division II kid. Was he Winona State? I can't remember where he was.
Winona State, yeah.
Was he in Winona? Yeah. So D2 kid and then spent the last 2 years at Missouri and went to the Senior Bowl. Don't think he's a great prospect, but I mean, he just tore up the SEC for a year, man. Like he was really good in 2023. So
yeah.
Great story. Great story. Sean, I want you to react to this one because I know you saw this video recently. Ina Benami said, how about that pass from Deuce Knight to Jerome Bettis Jr.? That arm is a thing of beauty.
Flick of the wrist. Let me tell you, man. He is probably, we both have spoken to him, so he is probably one of the best combinations of humility and confidence that I've ever seen in a kid. Like he is truly, you can tell his parents have done an incredible job. They have a really great family. His relationship with his sister and his brother, his siblings is fantastic. You can just tell the values that he has. But he's a kid that knows, like, yo, I'm the best athlete on the field every time I step on the field.
Oh yeah, he'll let you know too.
He knows it.
Not like not super outwardly, but like he'll just suddenly just be like, "Yep, I'm the fastest. Yep,
I'm the fastest.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. Nobody can mess with me." And that, so when you see him play, that's what I'm interested in seeing. Because pressure, you have to press on the tube to get the toothpaste to come out, right? The toothpaste is going to stay in the tube as long as you don't apply pressure.
Sure.
I want to see the pressure applied with competition on the same level when he gets to Notre Dame. That's what I can't wait to see. I think I know what's going to come out and what's on the inside, but I can't wait to see it. So that throw and Jerome Bettis, that is the type of athlete receiver he's probably going to be if he chooses Notre Dame or when he gets to college. 50-50, throw the ball up. So literally what you saw is like the games or the talents of both guys in one clip.
Well, and we have questions about Jerome Bettis Jr. in this mailbag, which might be a great spot to go to now. Now we're talking about Jerome a little bit. But someone said, yes, here we go. So Adam Anami actually had a follow-up, Sean, which makes sense. He was talking about Jerome Bettis Jr. in his previous question. He said many aren't high on Jerome Bettis Jr. What do you think, fellas? So, Sean, can I just say this, and then I'll kick it to you, and with any follow-up and your opinion, obviously, on it. I am just in wait and see mode to senior year, because I just talked to his coach yesterday, actually, and have a couple articles that have been out. One article that's out on Jerome as terms of recruiting and kind of the updates of what is going on recruiting. And the other one's going to talk about his improvements from a physical perspective in terms of Sean. He's up to 6'3" now. He's up to 195 pounds. This is a kid that just keeps growing, man. He keeps growing, and he's a physical kid. I, off of junior film, have questions of what type of athlete he is. Personally, I do.
Yeah.
But the things that I know is he's got length and he has great hands. I know those things. I'm interested to see, though, as a senior, if he takes a jump athletically, because I have heard that talking to his coach, and again, coaches are a little biased, but a lot of expectations for him, man, to be a big vertical presence for them this year and to take a big jump athletically. So I'm interested just to see his senior year. As of right now, Aiden, I don't see a great athlete overall, to be full transparent. I see a big body with great hands, but ask me this during or after senior year, because I think that's when it's going to determine ultimately my opinion on him, right? Like I want to have my opinion change because I'm hearing a lot of great things behind the scenes. I just obviously need to see it with my eyes a little bit.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you. It is a wait and see. I'll tell you, because it's similar. Because we both said the same thing. Like, we don't see the production from Elijah Burris. But I think we both like Elijah's film a little bit better.
Yeah, I like his film more than Burris. Yeah, I mean,
so it's a wait and see approach, because there's some things we want to see from Elijah Burris in his senior season that his coach thinks is going to translate into production. So you're right. As coaches should be biased for their guys, and
they should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, his coach is high on him, man. He was like, that kid could play safety, could play rover, be a move tight end if you want to put 30 pounds on him. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Sounds good, man. I hope you're right. So
I would much rather hear that than hear a coach say, well.
Yep.
Yeah, he's talented, but he's kind of a.
Well, you don't want to hear this, Sean, right? You don't want to hear this, like, oh, coach, like, tell me about him. He works really hard. Every day he's in here. Okay. Tell me something about his athleticism, please. Tell me something. That's like the super cliches of like, oh yeah, the quarterback, he's a coach's kid. First guy in, last guy to leave. It's like, you didn't tell me a single word about his athleticism or his arm or anything. You didn't tell me a single thing about his talent. Not a single
None of that.
Yeah.
Like, coach, it didn't help me at all.
Sean, I think I said in our first part of this podcast when we were talking about the combine, I think I said when the combine was about 4 times, maybe. And
maybe somebody missed it or came in late.
Yeah. Well, Tommy Guns is asking, when is the combine? Well, luckily, David Knight did answer you, Tommy, and I'll just pop it up on the screen since, just some people are visual people, right? So the combine is Monday, February 26th of this year to Monday, March 4th, 2024. But for the people that do the on-field stuff, I mean, obviously that's the access you get as from the public perspective. On-field is the 29th to the 3rd. So there you go. Tommy always asks the important questions that he could have just listened to and figured out, but whatever. Real estate 2024. Yeah. Here's a question, Sean, and I feel like you should be the one that actually no, I don't even know if you know Joe DeLeon, so we should not include you in this. Oh, you do? You know Joe? Okay.
Yeah.
So Real Estate 2024 says rank the following NFL draft analysts based on quality of takes: Ryan Roberts, Joe DeLeon, and Matt Miller.
Well, see, I've worked with Ryan Roberts and Matt Miller, so it's basically.
You've worked with Matt Miller, really?
I have.
I did not know that you.
Okay. Matt is a long time Chicago guy. So yeah, I got a chance to work with Matt for a year and a half.
Okay.
A year and a half. And not Chicago guy. I was thinking about Matt Bowen when I said Chicago guy, but still I worked with Matt Miller for about a year and a half.
Yeah. I was about to say,
So
I thought Matt Miller was a Kansas City guy. If I
yeah, he's a
remember
Kansas
correctly.
City guy. I was thinking about Matt Bowen, but
Gotcha.
who's now, Chicago guy, but coaches football here.
Did you know Matt Bowen works with Dominic Kulak? Did you know that? Matt Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
He does some
He's a
training
high
with
school
him.
coach here. Yeah.
Yep.
He trains and he's a high school coach here. So Ryan Roberts, Matt Miller, Joe DeLeon. There you go.
That's funny.
There you go. There you go.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Because Joe has no path to the top two.
He has no path. All right. As my podcast partner, I have to put him at number 2. I'll put Joe at number 1 just to be a little bit humble here, right? I'll put myself at number 2, and I'll put Matt Miller at number 3. Yeah, we'll end there. Real Estate also said, has Ryan ever shoved Joe DeLeon in a locker? Not yet, because you know what, Real Estate? I've actually never been in the same room with Joe, which is kind of funny, Sean, because we've been doing a podcast together for like over 4 years, and I've never been in person with him until this month. He's going to get
coming week. This combine.
Yeah, first time together, man. So maybe he'll get shoved in a locker this year. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see how things go in Indianapolis. We will see. All right, let's get back to some actual questions here. Tommy Guns has a question. Sean, do you guys think Caleb Williams is as an athlete? Wait, do you guys think Caleb Williams as an athlete and quarterback, not including his off the field pose, could be Mahomes-esque? Everyone, it's a natural comparison that people are going to make, because I will say this. There is some similarities to his release and ability to throw off platform to Patrick Mahomes. So I think stylistically you can make the comparison a little bit. I think comparing anybody to Patrick Mahomes, though, right now is dangerous. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, right? I think Caleb Williams is going to be in a very good quarterback in the NFL. I do. But that doesn't mean that he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, right? But stylistically, just as a thrower of the football, are there some parallels? Sure. There's some parallels, but I'm gonna be careful on the Patrick Mahomes comps for any player moving forward. Just a little tentative there.
It's dangerous and it's unnecessary, in my opinion. Yeah, because I think people say it to try and establish what someone can be, and honestly, I just don't think it's smart. I just don't see it as being smart. I don't. Let the kid live. Let the kid live. Look, I say this all the time. Patrick Mahomes is very much similar to Kobe Bryant to me.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Bryant was like winning like a three-peat in his first 5 years, dude. Like first 6 years.
Wild, yeah. Yeah.
With Phil Jackson and Shaq. Like he came into a situation where that was a great situation. He was a great talent. He probably still would have won if he had gone elsewhere, or if he had stayed in Charlotte, the team that drafted him before they traded him. They probably hate that they did that, but
just,
you have
to possibly traded away a top 2 to 3 shooting guard of all time, right? I mean, it's not a great situation to be in, but yeah.
For Vlade Divac. Good job.
Oh, I forgot about Vlade, man. Yeah.
Good job. But no, it is it's just unfair. Like if Patrick ends up going to the Bears are probably a playoff team, but they're not a dynasty at this point in his career. Just because we spent a large, a set part of the early segment showing respect to the Chiefs and the way they run the business side. We know what they can do on the field, but it's mirrored by what they do on the business side and the ownership and the scout, everything. The Bears don't. I think the Bears still have like the smallest scouting squad in the NFL. It's like they just Look, Caleb and where he goes, first of all, he's not going to good spots. He's going 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And more than likely, it's going to be a bad spot, bad team. We'll see how it plays out, but it's dangerous to compare him. No one in the NFL compares to, forget comparing Caleb Williams. There's no one in the NFL that compares to Patrick Mahomes. Did you hear this stat? Since 2018, I forgot who put this up. I think it might have been Barstool Big Cat. Since 2018, in the clutch, when it comes to clutch, which is categorized a minute 50 or less, and you need a touchdown.
Okay.
There are only 3 quarterbacks that are above 50%.
50% is in win-loss, or as in
And actually winning, going ahead and getting a touchdown to win or tie the game.
Got it. Okay.
Tom Brady was like 50%.
Okay.
And then I think it was Joe Burrow, and he was like 40-something%. Patrick Mahomes is 7 for 7.
That's wild, man.
That just shows you, like, dude, Tom Brady is 50%.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is 7 for 7.
Yeah.
It's like it is. And you know what that is? That's tough. I've never really thought about this, Ryan, until when someone's in that position, you're giving them 4 downs. I've never thought about that, right? Because you have 3 downs most times.
Yep.
But when you give a great quarter, he knows he has 4 downs. It's tough to stop a really good quarterback. That's tough. You know, when you put them in those clutch positions, that's.
Well, Sean, what was it in the drive they needed? Right, it was it 2nd and 14, and when it was 2nd and 14, oh my God, that was the worst play.
I don't know. That play was one of the dumbest plays.
It should have been 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 6, and it's 2nd and 14 because he broke a tackle and ran backwards. It was the dumbest play in probably that Super Bowl. But Sean, a lot of guys get into 2nd 14 and you start getting a little tight, right? Like kind of shrivel up a little bit, right? Like it's a tough moment, man. Yeah. And it's like it didn't even faze him, man. He's just like,
no,
he's a different dude, man. He's a different dude. And I know in the greatest of all time conversation, people want to see more, obviously, right? They want to see the longevity, and I get that, man. But I will say this, Sean, if you're telling me I can only have one quarterback in one football game at the peak of what they are, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. Again, that's not saying he's the most accomplished. It's not even saying he's the greatest. But if I had one game and I needed a quarterback, I'm going with Pat Mahomes at his peak, man. I'm going with him. I have
no problem.
He's different. He's different, man. Different dude.
And different. Look, different is the talent is the talent, right?
Yep.
He's getting better as a quarterback, if that makes sense. That's what's dangerous. The talent is the talent.
Yep.
And it's elite. But he's getting better at the position.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Well, Sean, like, look, he has Travis Kelce, who's one of the best tight ends of all time, right? He's got him.
Oh, absolutely.
You already mentioned early in the show, doesn't have a great offensive line. The interior is pretty good, but the offensive tackles stink. Like, they're not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
Sean, his all receivers are not good, man. Like, it's not good. And he still got it done this year, man. Like, in the biggest moments, too. Sean, who made the 2 biggest plays the last 2 games for the Kansas City Chiefs at wide receiver? It was Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's awful. Guys, terrible football player. But he made that catch at the end of the game to seal it in the playoffs a couple games ago, right? Against the who are they playing? Against it's escaping me for some
Baltimore
reason.
Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens.
Against the Ravens, yeah.
Yeah. Baltimore Ravens. And then this past game, who did he throw the game-winning touchdown and have his best throw of the day to?
Mecole Hartman on both occasions.
Mecole Hartman was on the New York Jets this season. Who the heck knew that? Absolutely terrible, man. Awful wide receivers.
The guy that had a touchdown and a huge punt return, they just pretty much told him stay home. Like, you helped us win last year. We don't need you. Stay home.
Yeah. They're like Canaries, Tony. You're good, bro. Just stay over there. We'll mail you the ring if we win. Like we don't need to see you again. Yeah. So I mean, he's got those guys. He's got Justin Watson, and like, yeah. The fact that he took that offense, I know the defense was really good this year. Like, no argument, man. But the fact that you just took the wide receivers you did and made some of the clutch plays in the biggest moments of the game with that wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Miraculous. I mean, honestly, it was miraculous, man, that he was able to do that. Absolutely crazy.
And, it's not, like I said, it's everyone's opinion. No one has done this to start look, when we start next season, just put the placard of Kansas City Chiefs versus whoever. Right. There has not been a season that he has not been in the championship game. In the toughest, toughest conference. Yep. In the toughest conference.
Yep.
In the toughest conference.
Hey, man, you're on the Super Bowls. Andy Reid didn't win anything before. Oh man, we got Andy Reid as the reason. Andy Reid's a very good coach, but he didn't win a Super Bowl until he got Patrick Mahomes, man. Can we stop with that, please? Can we stop with it?
Disrespectful. That's so disrespectful. He couldn't win. What Andy Reid had a pretty good quarterback before Patrick Mahomes. He had Donovan McNabb.
Oh yeah, Alex Smith.
Andy Reid. Andy Reid went to 4. Andy Reid is exactly what Shanahan is now.
Yep.
When he was in Philly, the same questions, mistakes, can't get over the hump. It's real easy to get over the hump when you got 15. Real easy. Yeah. You can just, it's a Notre Dame podcast. This might come across as blasphemous. Joe Montana ain't nowhere near Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. It's not even close. He's not even the same stratosphere. I don't have a problem saying it. I don't have a problem saying it at all.
Well, I defer to some of those conversations. I stick to the Brady versus Mahomes thing because I never saw Joe live, right? Like I just saw
Joe live.
Highlights of Joe live.
I saw Joe live. And the moment the team around him started to go down, it was a wrap. The moment the talent around the team started to go down, it was a wrap. Right. It was a wrap. They took a 2,000-yard receiver. They took the number 1 receiver in the NFL from Patrick Mahomes, and he won back-to-back Super Bowls. Back-to-back.
They did do that. You're absolutely correct.
Jerry Rice. Go take Jerry Rice from Joe Montana and tell me what he does. Tell me what happens if you take Jerry Rice off those 49ers teams. Tell me.
And I really don't want it to diminish anything. That's why I hate like that take though, Sean. It's like
I'm not trying to diminish anyone, but people are not being, it has nothing to do with recency bias. Brian is younger than me. So maybe Brian, like you said, he didn't watch. I saw Joe.
Right.
I saw Joe smack John Elway. I saw Joe smack Dan Marino. I saw Joe beat the best of the best in Super Bowls. I understand who Joe Montana is. I put Joe Montana before Tom Brady for a long time. A long time. But we're not going to sit here and act like Joe didn't win Super Bowls with stacked rosters, offensively and defensively. We're not about to do that. We're not about to act like Joe Montana didn't fumble and lose a fumble and throw 3 interceptions before he hit Dwight Clark. He was the reason they were losing going into the 4th quarter. That's how bad he played. Now he recovered and was able to win, which is the clutch gene that he has. But like, dude,
he's a very clutch player. Very clutch player.
Yeah, we're not, dude. You haven't seen. Ladies and gentlemen, look. I love Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan is the GOAT, but I've never seen anything like LeBron James, and I can admit that. Just because Michael Jordan is my guy, I don't have to hate on LeBron James and who he is. That dude is. We haven't seen anything like him. And you know what's coming down the pipe? I've never seen anything like Victor Wembanyama. Never seen anything like him. I've never seen a 7'4" dude Never seen a 7'4" dude with that skill set. And if he wins championships, we're gonna have a discussion. We're gonna have to have a discussion.
Did you see the what was the game he just had, like 27, 14, and 10 blocks or something like that? I was like,
It's
what
ridiculous.
the heck is this, man?
And then he comes back like the next game and like it's man, look, I think they played that. Look, if you disagree, fine. Don't tell us we're having recency bias, dude, because we are just like everybody else. Things have to be proven to us. He won the first one. We want to see more. He won the second one. We want to see more. He's always at home. Well, guess what? He just beat 5 of the top 6 vote getters in the MVP race.
On the road.
He went and beat the number 1, 2, and 4 defenses in the NFL in the playoff run. Without a 1,000-yard receiver, without a 1,000-yard running back, and terrible tackles.
And Matt Nagy is his offensive coordinator.
And Matt Nagy what are we really talking about? Who's elevating who? You're talking about Andy Reid. Who's really elevating who?
Yeah,
it is. It's one of the most impressive runs I've ever seen in the playoffs.
Yep. All I'll say in the Andy Reid conversation there is I love Andy Reid. Actually, I was an Andy Reid fan before we went to Kansas City because I watched him his entire career here in Philadelphia. Sean, Andy Reid, in my opinion, was a very good coach before Pat Mahomes. Now he's a great coach. Is that an accident, man? Is that an accident? I don't think it's an accident. I'm sorry. I think there's a reason that he's ascended to a great status of Hall of Famer. I literally am listening on the radio where they're talking about him being better than Bill Belichick, Bill Walsh, all these great coaches, Don Shula. Like they're literally having the conversation here every single day now. He wasn't that guy before Pat Mahomes, though. He was never in that conversation, and he had coached 20 years before he won his first Super Bowl. 20 years as an NFL head coach. Pat Mahomes. Look, man, and I'm not trying to crown the guys. I literally just said I'm not trying to make that conversation yet. But if you're asking me, as far as quarterbacks I have seen, who I would take for one game in their prime, it's Pat Mahomes for me personally.
Has he even reached his prime? That's the thing. Has he even reached his prime?
28. He's only 28.
28.
Yeah, right.
His prime might be like 2 years from now, which is absolutely it's insane. And Antoine, I clearly said Michael Jordan is the GOAT. I clearly did say that.
But you just said LeBron's different. Different doesn't mean better. Different just means different, right?
You haven't seen anybody 6'8", 270 running and then playing at the level he's playing at almost 40 years old. You haven't seen that. And you can appreciate that. It's averaging
like 25 a game at like 40 years old. It's wild.
You can appreciate that. We don't do. I think the reason I went down that road, Ryan, I'm sorry, man. The reason I went down that road is I just don't like when people, like no one is saying, if you're going to say, who would Joe Montana have been without Bill Walsh? Like, you're not applying that to Joe Montana. He had one of the greatest coaches of all time that literally brought the West Coast offense to the NFL. He was an innovator, but you're not going to detract from Joe Montana for that. But we want to give credit. Andy Reid is the reason Patrick Mahomes is good. That's for me. That's when it's like, okay, now I can't go there. If you think Joe Montana is more clutch or better, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
but
that's the craziest part, Sean, is that we're already having this conversation with Patrick Mahomes, and he's 28 years old, man. He in this era, he could play another 7, 8, 10 years. I mean, he could play a long time, man. He could play a whole lot of time left.
Name me one thing.
Yeah.
As an evaluator. See, I'm gonna throw you an alley-oop.
There we go. Right.
As an evaluator, tell me one thing Joe Montana does better than Patrick Mahomes. As an evaluator, just tell me. If you would tell me one thing he does better than Patrick Mahomes, I'll shut up. Just tell me one.
Quick game? I don't know, man. I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Again, I haven't seen enough of Joe Montana live to actually have an opinion there. I can tell you, if we're just talking about physical traits, Mahomes has a stronger arm. Mahomes is better outside of structure. Mahomes is better when things break down. Yeah.
Once again, everybody in the chat talking about Andy Reid, do the same thing for Bill Walsh. Do the exact same, give the same credit to Bill Walsh for Joe Montana.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. Do the exact, because in my opinion, Bill Walsh is a better coach than Andy Reid. In my opinion.
Could be. Yeah, I think that's a fine statement. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. Montana had better footwork.
Sure.
Okay.
Because he had to.
Okay.
Because he had to have better footwork. He had to. I mean, honestly, like, he sure did, I'm sure, because he had to, because he couldn't do some of the things that Pat Mahomes could do. I mean, it's the point, right? Tom Brady has better footwork too, because he had to. And that's not hey man, you won't find a guy that appreciates Tom Brady probably more than me either, Sean. I mean, go look at Bill Belichick is the guy that people try to throw out as the greatest of all time, right? Go look at Bill Belichick's record without Tom Brady. Go look at it, man. It's not great. I know before the last 2 years, I think his record was like 44, 55, and 1. And then the last 2 years were not very good in New England. So his record without Tom Brady is bad. Like, it's bad, guys. It's not that it's not good. It's bad. It's not average. It's not slightly below average. Like, it's bad. It's well under 500 without Tom Brady. So I think that's the distinguisher. But yeah, another conversation for another day. Man, that was a long one, Sean. We're going to move on to the next question. Yeah.
Joe is definitely wealthier. I'll say that.
Definitely wealthier.
He's done great business-wise. Well, man, I don't know. Pat did get half a bill, right?
Pat Mahomes is not going to be hurting for money anytime soon.
No,
yes, I can verify that.
No. Ryan, you remember last year? You saw the quarterback series on Netflix, right? You saw the quarterback series on Netflix. The man literally rented a home a block away from the stadium because he said, I'm going to the Super Bowl. This was after they took Tyreek Hill from him.
Yeah.
You know what he did this year? Did you see the story? Mm-hmm. He literally texts people, I decided we're going to the Super Bowl on January the 5th. He literally said, I decided we're going to the Super Bowl. Man, he's different. And if you don't want to respect the fact that he's different, playing a position, man, you go ahead. Feel the way you feel. You're watching something different. Heck, Dan Marino was different when he first walked in the league. He was different. This dude comes to the league throwing 48, 49 touchdowns when people are running the ball.
Wild, man. Wild.
That dude was different. No one was sitting up there like, oh, he's better than Montana. No, but you can acknowledge, like, yo, this dude is different.
Sure.
And
again, we're not going to work on the chat too much, but Joe said check Walsh without Montana. I just checked, and Coach Walsh in the NFL coached 1 year without Joe Montana. So I don't think that that's a fair representation. I mean, I'm talking about Bill Belichick that coached like 10 years in the NFL without Tom Brady as his quarterback. So I don't think that that's quite apples to apples of a comparison. So, but we're going to move on, Sean. We are going to move on. Man, I got you riled up in here, my friend. I think we could all agree with one thing. Nathan Milton at one point, I think, did say that what does Montana have over Mahomes? He went to a better college. And I agree.
Without question. Heck yeah. I would have loved to have Mahomes here, though. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, man.
I would have loved to have him here.
Let's go to this next.
Can you imagine Mahomes instead of Ian Book? Well, let me stop.
Yeah, let you stop. It's a good call, man. Nathan Milton did have a question, though, Sean. He said, what are your thoughts on Isaiah Foskey's rookie year? My question is, did he have a rookie year? Because I'm looking at this, Sean. In 10 games, Isaiah Foskey had 9 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, and 1 pass breakup. So didn't do much as a rookie for the New Orleans Saints. And I didn't watch any of Isaiah Foskey this year, but apparently he didn't play a ton. I'm trying to pull up the PFF stuff to see how many snaps he played this year. As I imagine it's not too many. I don't even have the PFF number in me, but yeah, 9 total tackles, no sacks as a rookie. I'm not like overly surprised though. I mean, Sean, I think we talked about this, but like Isaiah Foskey needed a lot of technical work coming out of Notre Dame. I didn't expect him to be a stalwart as a rookie. I don't know.
Yeah. But dude, that once again, players that just play at Notre Dame, I expect him to be like. I looked up middle of the season and I see Sheldon Day chasing Justin Fields, and I'm like, wait a minute, when the heck did Sheldon Day get on the Vikings? Like Notre Dame players just stick, man. They just stick. The culture of Notre Dame really prepares them for the NFL and professionalism. It just does. And maybe it's just the focus on making sure you're good on and off the field, but.
Oh man, I'm trying to find this. Tyler said that he had half a sack this year, but I'm looking on Pro Football, and Tyler, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm looking on ProReference.com, and they had no sacks, and then PFF also had no sacks credit, like not even a half a sack. So maybe it's wrong. Maybe ESPN's right. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said Patrick Mahomes didn't play well in the Super Bowl. He put up 400 total yards on offense. Dude, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Hey.
Gotcha, Tyler. ESPN, maybe that's incorrect on Pro Reference then. Yes. Let's go to
the next question, bro. Next question.
We're getting out of here kind of soon anyway. We got a couple fun questions about we got questions here, Sean, about some potatoes. So we're gonna get into some potato conversation here, apparently. I know I saw. Yeah, so Patrick Earwood wants to know first and foremost, Sean, how many tater tots?
Somebody's backstage. Somebody's backstage. Okay. They probably heard the name Elway. That's why they jumped in backstage. I want to see if they jump on. I want to see if they jump on. No, they're not. Okay, Sean, let's go to the next
Patrick Earwood.
I was trying to tease them.
Patrick Earwood wants to know how many tater tots do you think you can put down in a sitting?
Sweet potato or regular?
Either one.
I love it. Sweet potato. I can, man. Yeah, I can go with a nice little ketchup to dip them in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking for precise number, I don't know. Whatever the servings are, give me 2 servings.
I think I could put down a lot of tater tots, man. I mean, personally, I mean, I'm just trying to think of it, Sean. Like, it's not incredibly filling, right? I mean, like they're small to begin with. A tater tot. I mean, if that's all I'm eating, 25. I don't know. I feel like I could do a lot of tater tots. 25. Is that a number? Is that a fair number?
That's pretty good. That's
maybe
pretty
more.
Good.
I mean, also like Patrick. I mean, my main question would be.
Let's do it at the combine, bro.
I don't want to do that at the combine, man. I'm already trying to lose weight, and you wanted me to eat like 30 tater tots. Like,
oh man. We'll celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. We'll celebrate the blue and gold game by going out, and we'll count up how many tater tots we can eat at the same time, and then we'll tweet out the number.
Tater tots are glorious, though, man. I do love a good tater tot, but yeah, I mean, my question is like, what am I trying to get out of this sitting, Patrick? Like, am I trying to set a record? Am I just seeing how much is comfortable before I make myself throw up? Like, I don't know, man. There's a big indicator there as far as the success of eating these tater tots. But Sean, our other question is from Christopher Hardy. Are you still shaking your head over the conversation in the chat, man? All right. So here's another question, Sean. Christopher Hardy said, which one are you taking? Onion rings or French fries? Let's start off with the first question. Onion rings or French fries?
Depends. It depends. There's a spot here in Chicago where their onion rings are like world famous. Every time I go there, I get the onion rings with the burger. Pretty much every other place.
Are they beer battered or?
Yeah, dude. They're just, oh man, they're big. You know how you get like the collection of onion rings where some of them are small and the other ones are medium, and then you get a couple of big ones? No, all of them are like humongous, and they give you a nice amount. Fantastic. And then the breading is just like the seasoning, and it's really good breading. It's not like mushy. It's crisp. It's yo.
You need to have the crisp outside. You have to have the crisp outside. I hate though. Sometimes when they're not cooked long enough, though, I feel like there's sometimes where when the onion's too big, it's too big of a piece that you get stuck and it doesn't like melts. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
need that onion to melt in a good onion ring. I need some kind of melt and just ease into forget it, man. I almost said something really, really suspect, and I'm just going to stop talking about things melting in mouths. Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. But I'm going to take a French fry in that situation. I'm going to take a French fry. If onion rings, would it change if the fries were chili cheese fries or fully loaded, Sean? Would that change the scenario for you?
I'm not really a chili cheese fries, even though the chili cheese Fritos are really good though.
Okay,
I don't know if you have
I'm not
do.
really. I'm not really a chili cheese or loaded fry guy, man. I'm not. Because I like texture with fries, and I feel like when you put too much stuff on top, it like hurts the texture of the fry. You know what I'm saying?
There's a place here in Chicago, soul food spot, that does a lobster frite.
Okay.
And frite is basically just fries with, you know, they have the lobster like with cheese. Oh, but no, I've never had chili cheese fries, bro.
I'm not really a huge chili guy in general. I mean, chili's
Okay,
okay. I'm not.
okay,
I like texture, man. I like texture. So like things that kind of get too mushy or whatever, and I feel like chili can get really mushy. Chili cheese, like I want a good fry. Like I want a crisp fry. I want that delicious outer exterior of a fry. So if I'm throwing
right,
like chili and like the nacho cheese type of stuff on it, it's like you're making it soggy, right? Like I'm down with, you know what I like? I like cheese. I like cheese fries that have like a mozzarella cheese or something like that on there because it doesn't make it soggy. It's just an extra layer of flavor, if that makes
okay.
sense. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
I'm with that.
All right. Let's get to this last one, Sean, because we do gotta get out of
No,
here, man. Some great
I've never
questions. Oh
had
no.
chili cheese fries. I just haven't.
I thought you were about to say, like,
I'm,
no, we're not leaving. We're not leaving.
no, 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 no.
Oh gosh. Oh man. This show is getting out of hand today, man. But yeah, we're good here, man. We're good. Sean, last one, and then we will actually get out of here. So salty Virginia peanuts. Hit us with this one, Sean.
Okay, salty.
Salty said ESPN bumped Notre Dame up to number 5 in their way too early. I hate that name. Preseason ranking. Do you agree? Why or why not?
I just think a lot of things are happening, like coaching changes, and certain teams might be dropping back that might have been in the top 5. So it's kind of a natural order that's taking place based upon the all season. Notre Dame is a more stable situation in the eyes of a lot of people. So if you're going to give the nod, Florida State, if they didn't have all the defections, they probably would have been top 5. It's about par for the course. Par for the course. We did a show Saturday where we talked about Notre Dame is kind of like 74th in returning production in the country. But, you bring in the production via the transfer portal that they have at certain positions, and then they're very high on Bill Connolly's SP Plus. I think they're top 10. I think they're number 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Which is a good spot to be
SP
in, man, to
Plus.
start with.
Yeah, so it's I don't think that's too far-fetched for them to be number 5.
Yeah.
Just on paper.
Yeah. These way too early stuff too are always so interesting because in typical years, I feel like it makes more sense. But like this year, or the last couple years especially, there's just so much roster turnover, man. Like it's just all projection. And I know it always is in the preseason, but I mean, we're talking about Notre Dame at number 5 with another transfer quarterback, with potentially 2 new transfer wide receivers, potentially leading your team. Like just so much change on a year. Ohio State's the trendy pick right now. I think they were number 2 on that list, right, Sean? It's like they have a transfer quarterback, they have a new transfer running back that's coming in, they have a new offensive coordinator. Like it's just so much turnover on a year-to-year perspective. So I don't really care about the early stuff. But I think that it is a good sign that some people are high on Notre Dame early. I think that is a change. ESPN's a little bit lower typically on Notre Dame, and they like
which
what they
is
see.
funny. See, I'm more interested in the over-unders from Vegas.
Sure.
You see, Sam Hartman came, and they had the exact same over-under as they had the year
didn't
before,
change much,
which was a sign early on, like, wait a minute. Like Notre Dame hit the over both years, but that kind of lets you know that like the people that know didn't expect Notre Dame to take a step forward just because they got Sam Hartman. So I'm interested in seeing what it is early, even if they're already out. They might have some lines already out. Probably it's Vegas. I'm sure they do.
Right.
I'm interested in seeing if they bump the number up a little bit this year.
They could. It's going to be interesting to see for sure. And yeah, but I
I
think it's a
fully
good sign that
expect-
people are high on them early. Yep.
Yeah. We did today we did a part called Hate It or Love It, just to show love to Valentine's Day. And one of the things I said to Malik was, Notre Dame makes it to the semifinals of the college football playoffs. Do you hate it or love it?
Mm-hmm.
You like that one, or you love that one, or you like,
Say that one more time. Say it one more time, and I'll let it.
Notre Dame will make it to the semifinals of the college football playoffs. Do you hate it or you love it?
As far as, is that my expectation, or if that's just
no, I'm saying that's okay. I'm making a statement. Notre Dame will make it to the college football playoffs. Do you hate that statement? Okay. Like you agree? I mean, you love it? Like, yeah, I think they will. Or do you hate it? Like, I'm not sure.
I think I love it. Yeah. Sean, I'm high on this team, man. Like, again, like last offseason, I convinced myself of some certain things potentially going right. This offseason, I feel like I have to convince myself of a lot less things this offseason, man, which is, I don't have to convince myself of offensive coordinator position working out as much as I did last offseason. I'm more convinced that happens. As long as Riley Leonard stays healthy, I'm more convinced that he's going to be a dynamic playmaker than Sam Hartman was last offseason. Like I feel better about certain situations here. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, I think that's going to wrap us up here today. I want to thank everybody for joining us to show. Hey, we talked not only combine, we also talked some recruiting tidbits in the middle of this podcast. So if you didn't listen to those sections, make sure to go back and listen in. And before you leave, you can just hit that like button for us. We very much appreciate it. Hit that notification bell. Make sure that you're sharing the podcast as well. Word of mouth, also on any social media, would be very much appreciated. On your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews are always very much appreciated as well. Boards.irishbreakdown.com for all the latest recruiting team intel, as well as if you just want to come talk ball. We are always there at boards.irishbreakdown.com. We will be back again very, very soon. But again, hit that notification bell so you know when the next show is. But that's Sean Davis. I'm Ryan Roberts. Thank you all again so much for joining us today on the Irish Breakdown podcast.